Okay, we are back, and it's sooner than I thought I would be, to be honest. This was supposed to be a once a month kind of thing, but sometimes you get presented with an opportunity that you cannot miss, and this is, I believe, one of those opportunities. An opportunity that brings me to the beautiful Kingdom of Bahrain, a place I called home for many years during an important time of my life, to talk with arguably the most important executive in mixed martial arts today, and definitely, in my opinion, in the region. A man well known to be the president of Brave Combat Federation, but also holds important positions within government in the Kingdom of Bahrain, most notably an advisor to the president of the Bahrain Olympic Committee, His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa. He's called the Hawk, Mohammed Shahid. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me and congratulations. So, no, really, to start with, I have to say congratulations for the podcast. It's so important for the region. We were just talking about the idea of how much information we as MMA fans got through podcasts. And I think this region was waiting for that. And thank you, really, from the bottom of our heart. And I think most of the MMA fans in the region will stand with me for this conversation. That thank you really for making this happen, and we hope it continues for forever and it keeps growing, inshallah.
I hope so. I mean, there is I feel limitations. We talked about this off air about, TV, what can be said on TV, and how long you can have a discussion, on TV. So hopefully, this is the beginning of healthy, open discussions with many people in our sport, or even in combat sports in general. So, I'm very happy that after my first episode, I'm here already, and we're doing it even sooner than I thought. As I said, I was doing it. I want to talk about, in the beginning, like, I like to do this because sometimes it's an education for me as well. I separated the discussion in the beginning into three parts: Mohammed Shahid, the fighter; Mohammed Shahid, the trainer; and Mohammed Shahid, the executive. I want to start with the fighter because before all of this, before the suits, before everything else, there was the fighter, right? Just give us, a snapshot of what were you doing? Like, how did you find the sport in the beginning? How did you become a fighter?
It's an interesting story because it's a lot of people who come. We are also having something called KHK Media Group. So under KHK Media Group, we have an arm that focuses on movie industry. So we have people coming with storylines all the time, and they come with, and of course, because they know my background of MMA and Brave President, they always try to pitch the MMA story because that's the easiest to get the producers to fund if they love the story. So, but I tell them whenever they bring a martial arts story, I tell them, I think we are saturated with the Rocky movie stories where you have a guy who has nothing in life and climbs up to be a world champion and becomes everything that he dreamt of.
So that wasn't you, miss.
I wasn't that because I'll tell you, because that story is an easy story compared to another story. And I said that there's a poor man becoming a great fighter. There's a rich person trying to be achieving his dream. All of them achieving the same dream. Let's say being a fighter or a world champion. And then you have a middle class trying to achieve the same. And I always say that everything has a good story and an easy side to it. There's a good side and an easy side or a difficult side to it. So for an athlete or for an individual who is coming from a background, let's say he has nothing in life, he's so poor that he has to go out and find a way to make his breakfast or lunch or dinner himself. So at that point, I say, but you still have the freedom to try every option to survive. You can try whatever it takes as long as you survive and you don't have any restrictions. And then you have the middle class where we have no freedom to do what we want to do because as we are brought up, we have an agenda of going to school, being a doctor, engineer, whatever you have to be as per the society requires you to be, and your parents who follow the society and then expects you to be that person. At that point, it's not you as a person, but as you grow from the age of 1 year old all the way to 12 or 13, by the time you reach 13, when you are taking that decision to say, but it's my will, if you will, you can do it. And we heard that so much of those quotes on Instagram and Facebook. But the question is, to reach that point where you're going to will, what was your mind trained to be? What if your mind is trained from 1 year all the way to 13-year-old, trained not to will and go pursue it? It's something you can't control as an infant, So every middle class is brought up with that agenda, where somebody had an agenda of what he has to be, and you have to not only fight what you want to be in the future, but fight yourself of what you were made in the past 13 years. And that is a struggle that the poor or a person that comes from nothing has to go through. He's brought up with his own thoughts and his own ideas and his own experience of daily life. So I think there is a bigger challenge at the middle class, which is I said that it's hard for people to accept it, but that's why you don't see a lot of middle classes achieving the dream that they want to, compared to the people who came from a lower background. And you see the historian, we're like, hey, you know what, the Brazilian national team players, you look at Rivaldo, Roberto Carlos, they all came from nothing. And then you say, yes, because they could, and then, but the middle class, they don't have that opportunity. You are mostly restricted. And that story is never told.
Well, that's a very interesting story, because I still think that's going to come later on in our discussion when we talk about martial arts in the GCC, but I'll let you go on.
I would love to talk about that. So with that was my story. I was one of the middle class that was coming up, and I made a decision that I have to be a fighter because of Jackie Chan and Van Damme, of course, and they're always a big influence in your life. And I wanted to be a fighter. I tried training martial arts, and at those times, it was the licensing of martial arts was even more restricted than it is today, where you couldn't get to train Muay Thai, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, or mixed martial art openly at that point, because you had to have a lot of regulations. You had to go through a lot. You have to have a lot of license and stuff like that. So everybody was scared to go through those stuff, but to train extra martial arts that is not fully understood by the country. But I still loved it. I trained it. I was training in Bahrain under my master called Ashraf Ali, and he was a guy who loved kickboxing and Muay Thai, but he was a Taekwondo black belt Dan 4. So he started teaching in the name of Taekwondo, but of course we started doing low kicks, and we used to go to Taekwondo competitions and low kick the guys there and get disqualified. And we used to be the only guys that are hands up, so everybody looked at us like aliens, but that was fun. And we believed in the fact that fighting is to win by the other guy not standing up. That's how you win a fight. So we were in that mentality, so we didn't mind getting disqualified as long as the other guy was the one who's not standing up. I continued loving that sport so much, a combat sport, and I thought, I want to make a living out of this. This is what I want to do. This is my life, So I said, what am I going to do? I said, the military. That's where I can use my combat skills, and that was my first idea. Of course, the challenge of middle class is you can't get to do whatever you dream of or whatever you want, So I was restricted to go to a military school by my parents, and they said that this is not going to happen. And I had no other choice. I had to. And then I said, what's next? As everybody else, we end up seeing Ultimate Fighting Championship, and then we see all our eyes open. We see our dream in UFC. And I thought that's what I want to do. Now I can make a living by doing what I love to do, and that's combat. But then I look around me and I see a society that will never accept mixed martial art or combat sport. I look at a nation at that point that does not understand martial arts or professional athletes at that point. So we didn't have professional athletes. We didn't have mixed martial art athletes, or let alone any combat sports athlete that's going to go at the pro level and make a living out of it. So there was nobody that you could go to your parents or society and say, look at him. He did that. I want to be like him. So there was no that guy. It was challenging. So I had to make a decision and say that you have to break those ties and get out of the comfort zone. And I was like, how do I do that? And I said, run, And I was like, and I was so much there that I was like, should I not? And I was like, this is me. And I used to talk to myself a lot. And I used to tell to myself, this is what happens when you get old and you look back and you say, that was a young me who made a stupid decision. That's what's going to happen to you. And that stupid decision is what you're thinking right now. I used to talk to myself, and then one day I was like, forget it. If I don't get a life, I don't have it. But at least let me be happy for now, So I thought about now, and I took the decision. I was in my 11th grade in school, so high school, and I came back home one day, and next day morning, my mom comes to me and says, "Oh, time to go to school." And I said, "I'm not going." I said, "What happened?" I said, "I stopped school." She's like, she's like, "You're sick? You're not going today?" I said, "No, I'm not going anymore." It's like, anymore? I said, "Forever. It's done. My school career is over." And then I had aunties and uncles calling me from people I never heard of before or don't know the name, calling
Well,
me.
when you took that decision, it was because of wanting to become a fighter at the time? Or?
Yes,
So you
because
took that decision already?
yes.
Okay.
So I want to be a full-time fighter. So I knew that there's no way I could train for 2 hours, 3 hours, and do this part-time stuff and be a fighter. I want to be a world champion. That was the goal. It was not about being a professional fighter. It was to be a world champion. And I thought, I have to take the risk. I have to go and train full-time. And the reason why I quit school is not that I wouldn't get my 6 hours of training. I could still get my 6 hours of training if I did the midnight training like I used to do. I used to wake up at 12 midnight when everybody else sleeps and then start my training till 3 a.m. and then go sleep at school and then come back home and then I have my 6 to 8 or 6 to 9. I used to do my first session. So I could get my 6 hours, but I didn't get education. So I had to make sure that I did get my education of the mixed martial art industry. And that's one of the things that today I feel very proud of, that I went, and thanks to the internet as well. The internet time was up out there, so I could learn as much as I could about the sports industry, MMA industry, and what the promoters want from the athletes. How did the MMA industry come in? What's happening within the industry, corporate way, athletes' problems, and all of the stuff. So I learned, I studied, I slept, I trained, I ate, I studied, and it kept going for 9 years. But the beginning, when I had my family members, when I told this, my family members called me and they started crying on the phone as if I killed someone. And I was like, "What's happening? Why did you leave the school?" And I was like, "Who are you again?" Like I've never heard of you before. I mean, but that was the situation. And then I had to make money, so I started teaching my school because I used to fight a lot on this in schools and stuff. So people who knew me came and started training with me, and I started taking a very small amount of fees, like 10 BD, 15 BD, and training with them in my dad's flat in our room till he kicked me out because the carpets were getting messed up from the shoots. You're doing the single leg, the wrestling shooting, and then your knees are scratching the carpets, and there's no more carpet left. And you're doing jiu-jitsu, and your whole back is bleeding, and so finally he said, "Get out of the house, no more training at the house." So we found a Cornish beach, which is in front of the World Trade Center in Bahrain, and that beach it's no more there, but there was a beach, and that was our gym. We used to go there and train, and I used to collect money for almost 8 months, and then my brother helped me out. He took his fees for tuition and he skipped tuitions and collected them, my older brother, and then he was training me as well. We used to train together, so he used to put all this money together, and he said, "Where are you going to get fights now?" I said, "I need a fight." He said, "Where are you going to get fight?" I said, "Nothing in the region." "Where are you going to go?" I said, "Thailand. It seems like they have fights every week." I said, let's go there. So I traveled to Thailand, and I stayed in Thailand for my first 3 months in Thailand at WMC gym in Koh Samui. And I needed a fight, really needed a fight. So, but I didn't have money. I had money to travel and take a room at the gym, but couldn't survive for 3 months or more. So, and they didn't give me a fight for the first month. So if you get a fight, you still get 100 baht, 200 baht. You can survive for the next week. But they really didn't give me a fight. They were like, "No, we have to see you. We have to see your training." And I started training harder and harder just to show the guys that I'm ready to fight. And so I bought a protein shake and a Nutella, and then I started having my breakfast, lunch, and dinner 3 times protein shake. That's my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And for energy, I used to have a spoon of Nutella a day, and water is there. So I survived on that for 3 months, and which helped me a lot. I lost a lot of weight, and I fought at 69 kg at that point. I lost 25 kgs or so in 3 months. So and then I got my first fight in Thailand, and it was a dream. I always was scared of flying on a plane, and after that fight, I lost that fear. And I was like, because that was the most scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
Was it an MMA fight or
no, Muay Thai fight?
Okay.
So I started with Muay Thai fights. I had a couple of fights in Thailand, and then I flew back to Bahrain, and I decided to start making a team around me. So the idea of starting to teach my friends, when we didn't open a gym at all, but we were training together. So I gathered a couple of people, and I was like a salesman every time I see a new guy coming to train, I always pitch him, you want to be a fighter? You can be a fighter, because I want him to train 6-7 hours a day with me. So I could have a team that trains hard day and night. So 90% of them didn't believe me, and they were like, yeah. And some acted like they want to, and then they train for 1 hour, and the next 1 week you don't see them. So I was just struggling with not having training partners. But alhamdulillah, eventually I found one of my friends here who said he's going to open a bodybuilding gym, and I said, could you give me a room at the bodybuilding gym? He said, yeah, it's a really small one, we're going to put a punching bag there. That's the only space it has. I said, sure, that's enough for me, and the punching bag, I'll use it. And he gave me the room there. So I went in there, and I got my friends there, and we started the gym there, Bahraini MMA. And we started really training with the team, with the guys. All of them, we were training till they kicked us out because we were too sweaty. And they're like, we can't take this. We want a gym where we have class. There's no people sweating on the floor, Yeah. They want that kind of a gym. So, but again, they were really cool guys, because we got the opportunity to train there until a boy came in, and he was overweight kid, not too much, but still wanted to lose weight was a focus. And I was like, same thing, sales pitch. You can be a fighter, this and that. And he was like, oh, really? I said, yeah, I'll give you 6 months. You can lose weight. And once you lose weight, that means you can be a professional fighter, and just follow my orders and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And he came in every day morning, because I don't drive. Even now I don't drive. I didn't want to waste any time in my life, even taking a license, anything that's outside of learning and training. And I meant literally, I was sleeping, learning the industry, and training. That's all I did for 9 years. So he believed me. He came in the car, picked me up at 5 a.m. in the morning. We used to go training the whole day, and night he used to go back home, and he used to start getting problems from his house as well, I guess. But he did lose weight. He got into good shape, and I was blessed to have him believe in me. And his name was Hamza Kohiji.
I had a feeling you're going to say that.
And for me, I was like, this is what I had to do, because. And then I used to fight. I went to SFL at that point. I started compete. I didn't go. No. Before SFL, I went to India, because I found this manager there. He was making a lot of competitions and fights, Daniel Isaac. So I went, I met the guy, and he said, okay, we need to evaluate you before we get you into a fight. I said, sure, anything, And I knew that at that point I was like, I was in the mentality, I was having this weird monster mentality. I said that I want to run as fast as the Olympic sprinter. I want to jump as high as a basketball player. I want to do a long jump as, everything as a professional. So I used to live and die for training, So I went there, I said, anything you want, put me, evaluate me. And if it is sprinting for 5 kilometers, I would still do that, literally it wouldn't matter for me. So he did the evaluation. I reached Mumbai, Nasik. Next day he did the evaluation, and that night we took a flight and we went to Mumbai to get a fight, because that was a weekend, and the day after that we had landed, and on Sunday we had a fight. So he got this guy, and I'm in the mentality of just getting a fight, right? So you can understand how desperate I am to get an MMA fight. So the guy comes in. He was a national boxing champion. His name was Javed Mullah, and he came on the weighing scale. He came in. I was 71 and he was 82 kg. And they're like, okay, 1 second. They took me to the side. They're like, are you okay to fight him? He's 82 kg. I said, what do you mean? I'm only 71. What's the problem? He said, no, he's overweight. I said, so what's the problem? And I didn't know there was a weight class.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's the problem here? They're like, you going to go and fight with him? You're okay with that? I said, of course I am. Please, don't cancel this fight, please. And I was scared that it's my problem. They're going to cancel the fight or something. So I was completely lost. And they said, sure, go ahead. 46 seconds, I had a head kick and knocked him out. And from that event, at that region, there was a gym where everybody used to come for something called a gym wars in India at that point, which was very popular. All around India, they used to come boxing, kickboxing guys, all of them. So the community started paying attention to me until I went the second time, where I told him that I don't have the money to travel to India and Bahrain all the time. So please give me, in this event, can you give me 2 fights, not 1? Because I can't just come every time and get 1 fight, it's not possible. He's like, Shahid, this is not safe. I said, no, just give me 2 fights. We know each other. I swear to God, I'm flying all the way to India. I'm the only fighter who's flying from Bahrain to India. So at least give me that much credit. He said, sure, okay, we'll give you 2 fights. I kept the phone and I was learning MMA industry and watching YouTube again. I was like a freak. And then I called him after 20 minutes. I was like, you really did a good job for me. I really thank you for everything that you're doing. My career is being built because of you. And it's like, yeah, it's okay. I care about you. It's like, if you really care, give me 3 fights. And he's like, no.
This was pre SFL or
Pre-SFL.
Okay.
And he's like, no, I cannot do it. I said, please do it and stuff like that. And I stayed on the phone with him for 30 minutes. And finally he's like, okay, let's do it, But this time it won't be an MMA fight. It should be a kickboxing fight. But I can't give you 3 MMA fights. I said, done. Kickboxing fight, stand up, whatever it is. Give me another fight. He said, okay, good. I keep the phone back to learning and doing my stuff. And then after 30 minutes, I call him. And he's like, don't ask me for a fourth fight. I'm not giving you, done. I'm like, no, I didn't call you for that. I was just thinking that if you have a grappling competition, I would join that, Give me the one grappling fight more. And he was like, no, it can't happen. So I said, okay, fine. So I reached India. And when I reached there, somehow everybody started watching my video. And they were all like looking at me and they're talking about me. I told him, listen, I'm the poster boy here now. I said, you need to give me my 4th fight. And he was like, oh, you know what? Since you're here and asking me, I'll give you. So I got 4 fights in a day. And that was the best day of my life. I really enjoyed it. I went there. I fought 4 fights. I finished all my fights, all the 4 fights. And I was in the moon. And I came back, and everybody in India, the MMA community, they came to know about me, and they called me for a national championship of under 80 kg national championship. And I flew back and I won the championship. I became the under 80 kg national champion in India, and I came back to Bahrain again. And by that time, I'm building Hamza because I knew whatever I do, we need to see something that the public and the people in Bahrain can relate to. And that was Hamza Kohiji. I mean, he was that guy for me that I think he had everything: humbleness, he had passion, he had hard work, he had ethics of training, he had discipline, all of it that you needed. And you look into a person and say that even if he's not born with a skilled talent like Mike Tyson or Messi, he always has the potential to build that talent as long as he has everything else around him that can contribute to that. And we kept working on that, and eventually we reached a point where I started competing in SFL.
Now, to give some context to the people who don't know what the SFL is it's a super fight league,
Super
right?
Fight League, yeah.
And it was a big deal at the time. Like, I remember watching several shows in the beginning. It was the biggest thing in India at the time. I mean, Sanjay Dutt was
Yes.
one of the founders, right?
Yes, the movie star.
Whoever watches Bollywood movies would know who he
Yes.
is. But and then I believe right now it's like owned by Amir Khan maybe or someone else,
Yes.
which is weird because it's an Indian company that ended up being owned by Pakistan. I don't know what happened or
Right.
if it's still around even. But at the time, I remember they brought people like James Thompson, Bobby Lashley, right?
Yes.
It's like some big names, and then on the undercard they had people like Mohammed Shahid and other people from India and Pakistan and the region, maybe in the Middle East as well. So it was a pretty big deal at the time. And you competed in the first one, I believe, right?
I was in the first one. Yeah. No, when I saw the first SFL, the preparation, the vision, the planning, everything was amazing, and they did a lot of right things. They brought in the right people, the right TV guys for the production. They brought in the right organizers. They brought in the right matchmakers, all international guys, and who people we know of who's been in the business for a long time. And I became friends with them. And for me, it was always, again, learning, education. I was kept seeking education at that time. And yes, you're right, Sanjay Dutt. And there was another guy called Raj Kundra, who was a business tycoon, married to another Bollywood star called Shilpa Shetty. And together they combined with Daniel Isaac, the manager that I met the first time in India, and they created SFL. First 3 events was amazing. They made it big. They brought in the right people. It looked like a promising event to have, but again, it's not their fault. It's nobody's fault. That's what I've been telling that my lessons of the MMA industry has been from the downfalls of promotions and the downfall. I always looked at the dark side of MMA, the negative side of MMA, and I realized that we can't blame the fighters, nor can we blame the promoters. It's nobody's fault. It's the industry's situation today, and nobody today has taken the rights or responsibility to develop that industry. Somebody has to do it. We are all so deep in the bubble of mixed martial art that we've been brainwashed from the age of 1 to 13, like I was as a middle-class kid. MMA fans have been brainwashed from their infant stage of knowing MMA to now, because they're in that world, they're growing with that knowledge. So today we sit and we hear people communicating and talking about mixed martial art as if they know everything. And then I would give an example of what does it sound like for experts of MMA or sports? How does it sound for the experts of sports? Is that when you go meet a guy who's been doing karate for all his life, and he changes his John Karate School to John MMA School one fine day because now he knows karate plus watches UFC. So this together, combined together, he can teach MMA now. Only to the guys who doesn't know what MMA is. So guys who come in, he talks to them about GSP. He talks to them about all the history of MMA. Shows them what Kimura is. He shows them what full mount is, and and they're like, wow, full mount, and all that stuff is because they learned it from watching UFC, plus karate or plus kung fu, whatever it is, and they do MMA. That's what it for the MMA practitioners. They look and they're like, "You're kidding with me." And that's what it looks like for the sports people when they look at MMA. But the MMA people are in that bubble. And believe me, Muhammad, those kind of gyms do have hundreds of students too, And you look and you're like, really, like you don't have internet anymore. But, but that's the world, right? I mean, that's how it is. And I think there's a lot of gap in the MMA world that we are trying to fix today. Inshallah, we're trying. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but we're trying. And that is what... Thanks to podcasts like yours, I'm so happy, and I thank you because this awareness is what I want the world to know, and that there needs to be platform like yours that can send this awareness of what we are trying to really achieve and why SFL failed, why Desert Force failed, why Bama failed, and why all these countries promotions. If you and me together puts a paper and pen, we can name at least 20-30 promotions easily, together. And out of that, how many are making money? How many are successful? And it's not about how much money you're getting from tickets. It's how many of you are successful? How many of you are really giving back to the community of mixed martial art?
We'll discuss that later.
Definitely.
You jumped but let me before we move on to the next section. So it's good that you mentioned, your history with being a fighter, because honestly I didn't know about the Muay Thai past and the other sports pre SFL. I mean, I thought that the SFL was your first hurrah with martial arts, or like as a professional. But now that you mention it, you have 6 professional fights. I mean, according to what I know, 4 wins, 2 losses. And you mentioned, the funny thing is, you mentioned that back in the day you used to you didn't care about disqualifications. One of your losses was because of a disqualification, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And, maybe it speaks to your level of fighting, maybe, because in certain organizations, a knee to a grounded opponent is legal. And a lot of people today, actually, including like, people like Joe Rogan, who people respect his opinions, agree that knees to the head on a grounded opponent should be allowed. Maybe elbows need to be banned. I don't know, but there is this discussion. But
no,
it's a good thing you mentioned that disqualification.
Yeah.
Your mentality, and then
but that loss, especially the one that was supposed to be my fastest knockout. So I was 16 seconds, and that was supposed to be my fastest knockout in my all career of whether it's kickboxing, amateur, MMA, all of it together. And that was a little more disappointing because, like I told you, I would be happy to disqualify by getting a low kick to someone in a taekwondo competition and coming back. But this was a fight that was completely unintentional. One, because the rules have changed now. You need to have your whole palm on the floor, I guess. It's not just a finger. Yeah. You can't do that anymore. You have to have your whole palm on the floor to be a ground opponent. And also, you cannot, today, if it is you give a groin shot or any other shot that is unintentional because it's the first time and they consider it unintentional, they will no contest you. But this was shocking because I threw a knee, I had my forearm on his head, and I had the underhook on the other side, pinched up against the wall. There's no way I could see his hands. So the first knee knocked him out, which I didn't expect it to. And as he fell down, he touched the floor with his middle finger lifted slightly up is when I gave the second knee. But as I gave the knee and the touch was together, which was impossible for me to know. And the referee was Mark. And Mark Goddard was there. And then I was like, Mark, why are you disqualifying me? Make it a no contest. Do you really believe that I was intentionally timing him to touch? I mean, if you look at that, you'll know that it's not a loss. It is completely a no contest. And I can't have a loss on my record because I never really lost. I can't have that, But Mark was Mark, and I was not an executive at that point. So
it comes full circle now. It's amazing. Let's move on, because I don't want to... There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, people expect us to talk about a lot of issues, and hopefully we talk about them. Let's move. You kind of touched up on it a little bit, the training Hamza Kohiji and bringing in a team to help, selfishly at the beginning, train you, right?
True.
But eventually, I'm sure you stopped fighting and then you started focusing more because the team kind of got bigger a little bit. Talk to me about how you built that team after Hamza arrived.
The mentality of the gym was very simple. I tried to incorporate my mentality into the gym, which was don't come here and talk about black belt in jiu-jitsu. Don't come here and talk about how cool that fighter was in UFC. We don't talk about how cool fighters was. We only get jealous of a cool fighter because we want to beat that fighter. So that was a mentality that I incorporated in my gym. We don't come waste time talking about last UFCs or last this fighters competition, last Pride FCs. Come here, we train. Whoever wants to be a professional, we train 9 hours a day. The time you're not training, you learn, you watch YouTube skills and all that stuff. Eat right, sleep right, and come back to training again without any excuses. That was a mentality, which I don't think is the practice that was the most intelligent one, because that cost me my career with 2 dislocated shoulders. Even before I started joining SFL, I fought all my fights with 2 dislocated shoulders, and the first fight, my shoulder was dislocated in the 3rd round, and I continued the fight and won the fight, which is very evident when they see the guy throwing punches on my face, but he thought I was tired. So I understood that that's not the right way to go, but I also knew that we have to toughen up the guys. I had only 2 choices: either make the guys in tough mentality, or I try to teach them the right skills and the right way of doing it, and they don't have the tough mentality and they don't come for training. Like the 2050 guys that I tried to pitch them to join and be a professional mixed martial artist. So that
You started taking some of these guys. Actually, Hamza Kohji also fought in SFL, right?
he did fight in SFL, yes.
so
His
you
first
did-
fight was in SFL. Unfortunately, none of these guys could go through an amateur career because we didn't have the MMAF at those points.
True, yeah.
So we had to jump into pro fights and find the right fights. So I took Hamza Kohji. I think he had 2 fights in SFL or something. And then we got a contract with Desert Force, and we got him into Desert Force. I had another kid called Atif as well, who was really young. I think he was 15 or 16 at that point. Started fighting in SFL, was really growing, developing at that point, and he continued fighting in SFL. I try to get all the guys to start competing because they get that experience of competition. And once you compete, you get that feeling where it is, the training gets different. You come back, and when you train, your mind is the feeling of what goes to the cage. So when you train, it's no more finish off the 3 hours. No, it's no more that. It's about, I want to go for 5-6 hours to get rid of that feeling when I was going into the cage. That made me feel like I'm not confident enough. So they all competed, they all came in, and we started becoming a family together. We started training, eating, just doing everything, and helping each other out, being sparring partners. It was never a coach-student relationship. We were more of a team relationship. Of course, with all these competitions, that Sheikh Khalid was always watching what's going on in the combat sports community, which I never really thought, how you, like, why you were watching my fight, like.
When did you realize he was watching? Like when?
So
Was it Desert Force, that first Desert Force in Bahrain that happened when he attended?
Yes.
And Hamza fought as well. You were in his corner actually during that time.
Yes, I was in his corner, and that was the only Bahraini who won in that competition, I think, which added more value to us in the sense. So we've had Sheikh Khalid reaching out to us a couple of times through the office and saying that we had to have a meeting. We had several meetings with his secretaries and people to discuss what our plans are. And we were all nervous all the time, So every time they call, we put on the shorts and go, thinking, should we train or should we do some demonstration? So we're all confused, right?
This is Bahrain MMA, right? Your gym was called Bahrain MMA. Okay.
Yes, at that point. And then at the Desert Force event, he was sitting upstairs, and he called us upstairs, and he said, let's make a team together,
Wow, instantly like
instantly. He called us straight up, and he said, we've been trying to reach you and all that stuff. I said, yeah, we know, we gave all the plans out, whatever the plan was, He's like, no, I'll tell you what to do. Let's make a team. Let's put all those guys together. How many guys you have? Let me see them. Let's meet together the next time in my office, and we'll put up a team together. And we put up a team together, and then one day he sat down with me and he said, let's do something bigger. I said, what? No, we were training, actually. That was an interesting story, because we were training, and he's like, what's a life of an MMA fighter? You're fighting professionally? I said, yes. He said, what's a life like? I said, it's fun. And he was like, so you make a good living? I said, yeah, sure. I mean, I can sleep in my gym. I have Muay Thai pads as my pillow. I mean, and 3 times food is definitely there, So that's good. And since if you're cutting weight and fighting very often, you need that as well. So he was like, how can that be? How these are the toughest athletes and all that. But how can this be their life? I said, it's not. It's just the industry's problem. There's no cash flow in the industry. He's like, you know what? What would happen if the fighters had the resources? How would it change them? What if we give them a platform with every resource that's possible, and let's see what these fighters can do. Let's give them a life. And then we said, that's why I asked him, what's next? He said, let's meet in my office. And that's always the fun part, to go to that office, and he sits down and gives me that idea, and it's unbelievable how it comes to his mind. He sits down and just puts up the plan, and he's like, okay, we make 3 tiers of fighters. We make the elites, we make the pros, and we make the guys who are just turning pro from amateur, the transition period, and then the amateur. It's actually the 4 criterias. And then we said, so who do we need at the elite level? He said, Khabib and Frankie Edgar. And then we got Khabib and Frankie Edgar, guys who are already pro.
That was when the press conference happened, I believe. Renzo Gracie was there, Frankie,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
The announcement of the team, I believe.
2014, I think. Yeah. And then we had Eldar, Hamza, myself at the pro team, who are not the elites, just the pro guys, And then we had the guys who are just converting from amateur to pro, which we found at the first IMMAF Worlds, which were Franz Malambo, Shodi Torres, James Gallagher. And then we had the amateurs, which was Bahrain national team. I mean, what else can we do, yeah? So let's develop each of this platform and give them the right resources. I mean, resources is not just money. It's about mentally training them, physically training them, giving their family the assistance, giving them a peace of mind, looking after their problems in life. More of a management side, but without any return. Just to see how a proper structure of an athlete is given. Like, let's say, if they were a football athlete or a cricket athlete or any other real mainstream sports athlete, let's compare that to MMA and let's give them that life and see how they respond. Of course, Khabib was on a 2-year layoff at that point from a knee surgery or knee injury.
True, yeah.
And he did most of his recovery in Bahrain, did his training here, did all the support he got from Sheikh Khalid and KHK team, and just took care of him with all the resources. That was for Khabib. That's the most important thing, to recover and get back to the fighting shape. And he did get back to full strength, and he never had a problem with that knee after that. But also it is important to make sure that he's secured in terms of financially and resources wise. And we don't have to say where Khabib is today or what he's achieved in his life. Of course, it's not that the KHK was the reason he's a world champion, but it had a lot to do with the worst time of his career, And then Frankie was a time when he dropped his weight down, and everybody thought, okay, he's out of the lightweight, he's trying to find a way out. And I think he has, 3 title fights after that. And we made sure to build him back up and get 2 title fights then. And now I think 1 title fight recently, which is not a part of KHK. But at that point, our goal was to get him back into not a guy who's old and finishing his career, but a guy who's going to compete for the title. So we were like, but that's elite guys, of course, it's not KHK. They're top athletes anyways. And then you look at guys like Eldar, Hamza, and their success at the pro level. But even more interesting was the guys who just turned pro, where we saw the true success, because they were just nobody, 0 fight record, want to go pro, has the skill from the amateur career, and we gave them the right resources. And when they looked, the interesting thing happened is when they saw these athletes, you had Shodi Torres with 0 fight record join Titan FC.
Yeah.
Becomes a 2-division champion in Titan FC. And then you have James Gallagher, I think 3 pro fights, and goes to Bellator. And Franz Malambo, of course, he was a title contender for Brave. And you're like, why did that happen? Because they didn't have any pro fight. People say, fighters have to be promoted, fighters have to promote themselves. But they didn't have to do any of this because they were coming from a system that was automatically, they didn't have to be speaking well, they don't have to act like they know the language, no trash talking, but they had the value. They had the potential that the club or the promotion wanted, and they see the potential that in 5 years from now, that name from 0 pro record, what can I make in 10 pro records, So they saw the value in him, which he didn't even see it because he was built by a system that existed. And that was amazing for me, and that's when we changed our mind and we said, why 4 guys? And the amateur team, the 4th player, is the number 1 team in the world today. So Bahrain is ranked number 1. Hopefully we stay there after this World Championship. Russia and Kazakhstan is coming to take it away. So, but the success of the 4 layers was amazing. And we're like, Sheikh Khalid is like, Mohammed, my office. I was like, okay. And we go to the office and he's like, we need to do something bigger. We can't stick to 5-10 people. Let's do it for so many athletes. I said, yeah, let's do it. And then an interesting day happens when me and His Highness was on a treadmill. We were jogging when I could jog. And we were on a treadmill jogging, and we were watching UFC on the screen in front of the treadmill.
Yeah.
And they show the rankings of each weight class. I don't know if it was pound for pound or some weight class. But when they have the numbers, top 1 to 25, and then they have the names, photos, names, and flag. And I was like, Your Highness, one day we want to see Bahrain flag up there. And he looked. He's still jogging. I said, that'd be so great to have a Bahrain flag there. Right, Sheikh? And he was like, nah. One day, why don't we see all these flags under one system in Bahrain? And that changed the way I thought about things. And I said, it was not that we need to bring it to Bahrain, but it was about, let's change the system altogether. Let's make sure there's a system that can bring all of them together. And then you hear the group that's attacking UFC for the fighters' union department, and then you see the media department not able to make their money, and then you see promotions failing down, and then you see athletes complaining of how they're being treated. You see promotions complaining about athletes, how they'll be not useful, and then you're like, it's a disaster. And we are all in that bubble, and we are all joining the conversation without somebody stepping back and saying, 25-year-old sport called mixed martial art will take care of you. We're in the business of 200 years, of 100 years of sport. Let me carry you and show you what the sports industry is. You've done so good for the past 25 years. You become the fastest growing sport in the world. You created your own industry of media. You created your own industry when the mainstream media didn't care for you. You created all of your own. You have your own new journalists now. You have your own new CEOs and presidents who are ex-fighters and gym trainers now become presidents and CEOs. And you have an industry built from love for the sport. It's time to bring experts in. Let's take it one step further. Then we're all like, wait, we don't want that. We don't want that because now you want to come and take away what we created. And that's when you have to make a decision.
Was that a reference to Sheikh Khalid's meeting with Lorenzo Fertitta? Was that when Sheikh Khalid decided, okay, looks like they are going one way and they are not interested in a system where it's for everyone?
It's not UFC, it's not Fertitta Brothers itself. That's what I was telling you, Mohammed, that we really cared about the sport of mixed martial arts. His Highness really took the step to say, I'm going to go personally, like you mentioned to Fertitta, I almost forgot that he met Fertitta Brothers, he met Titan FC, I met Bama, I met M1 Global, I met Desert Force.
This was all pre-Brave?
Pre-Brave.
Okay.
Pre-Brave. SFL. I've met SFL. I went to every continent I could, and I had a relationship with, spoke to everybody. And the idea was what? Let's bring one solid system for mixed martial art. And it's not promotion. Let's not mistake. It's not promotion. It's amateur level, national level, regional pro level. And you have the amateur level on one side, and as soon as you hit national, there's a national pro level. And there's a regional amateur level, there's a regional pro level, international amateur level, international pro level, and then you have a world level of event. Why? Because it ticks all the check boxes that sports needs to deliver what sports is so great about. And then we look at, is MMA a sport today? Yes, you and me, yes, it's a sport today because we love the sport, But is it in the sports business? No, it's in the event business. You speak to UFC, you speak to your first podcast was Desert Force, and if you speak with he was a president or chairman?
He was the co-founder and GM of Desert Force.
Co-founder. But if you talk to him or to another person, like I spoke to, you spoke to Desert Force now. I spoke to Desert Force, I spoke to SFL, I spoke to Bama. The same conversation you were having, but you were trying to understand, and I was trying to discuss. But the mentality always is about event business. It doesn't matter if the event is showing MMA or it is Lady Gaga concert. It's the same idea, how I can get ticket sales, how I can make money to media rights, advertisement rights. So we are not talking on the same levels, so we had to have this conversation, go back, and I gave up.
But why does, this is what confuses me. Why does MMA always fall into that trap? For instance, when a country wants to promote jiu-jitsu, it gets promoted as a sport. It doesn't get promoted as entertainment, like automatically, right? In any other sport. But MMA falls into that trap. Is it the concept of cage fighting that people don't get as a sport?
Oh, no. It's just simply the history of how we were born, and that's a simple thing. So MMA was born, and you'll know better than me, of course. When the combat sports was really taken to mainstream was with UFC and Pride. That's when it became something that is more acceptable than what we had, like Wild Tudor, anything else, Pancreas and all that. Pancreas was still okay. But when it came to UFC and Pride as a promotion, that's the history of our sport. We can't change that. UFC came in. We know the story of UFC's 10 years, how the Ultimate Fighter, but we know all that story. So that's our history that we'll always remember, and we'll always keep it close to our heart. And that history there was a very positive side about the history is how that format of boxing's fighter versus fighter makes an event was changed by taking the WWE's format of making one company under which fighters are there. So there's no more promoters stealing fighters' money, there's no more backstabbing as much as boxing. So it changed the boxing mentality by taking the WWE's format and making it real combat sport, which was amazing, and we all loved it. And to support that, we had a lot of support from the MMA fans who said we'll make our own media so our community can watch it. And they had these bloody elbows and MMA fightings and MMA junkies, and all those people combined together, and they all grew together. We all grew as a family and as fans. But today we reached a point where we're like, great, we can continue this way as an event business, because we didn't think of the amateur side. It was just about, we grew up that way. That's our history. Today you see the IMMAF doing a great job by building the amateur, restarting it from the grassroots, which we couldn't say, oh, it should have been. No, it is what it is. It's our history. So now they're starting that. And then now we expect the biggest promotion in the world to take the responsibility and say, I'm going to take the responsibility of changing from where we are today to go into mainstream sport. But that didn't happen. Then we spoke.
Even though they supported the IMMAF,
exactly.
Right? They sponsored them for something. Actually, they had their first event during their fight week.
First 3 or 2 events. First 2 world championships minimum. I'm not sure. Maybe it's even 3. Was at the UFC Fight Week, and they do sponsor them even till now. But in the end of the day, taking the responsibility on the shoulder and giving $500 is different, And I always say that, one of my friends always tells me the saying about, do you want me to teach you how to catch a fish, or do you want me to buy you a fish? So always it's useful to teach you how to catch a fish, and that's more important.
It's actually very interesting, because the UFC will never recruit someone off the amateur ranks directly. He will have to go to the Titans, to the LFAs, to anyone else in order to get to the UFC. So they don't get them directly, they get them after a few professional fights, maybe even 5-6 professional fights.
So those numbers matters to them a lot. But I think where they should have taken the responsibility, it's not about the amateur. Amateur is one side to it, but creating a global ecosystem. And the global ecosystem is created by creating one national ecosystem in each of these countries. So when you ask what's Brave, I always say that Brave is not a promotion. We are a vision. And the promotion part of it, which we are today, doing this 12 events, 15 events, and all these things around the world, we are doing it to become a voice. So we can tell the rest of the world to join us in creating a new era of mixed martial art. We're combining with the Amateur International Federation and supporting the amateur ranks of the world, which is 61 countries coming tomorrow, to one destination, which is the Mecca of mixed martial art, Bahrain, and competing against each other for the past 3 years. Why couldn't it be this big in USA at the UFC Fight Week? And it's not because UFC is not big. It's simply because somebody didn't pay attention, thinking that was important. So when that is happening at one side, what we also need to do is bring all the countries and regions together onto one system where an athlete, I'll put it in the right way, to make sure that there can be an athlete who, regardless of marketability, regardless of speaking English, regardless of his race or religion, he could be a Messi in mixed martial art. Even today, I don't know how Messi sounds. I never listened to an interview of his because he doesn't speak English. And I always say that one of my favorite players, I'm a Juventus fan, so one of my favorite players was a guy called Del Piero. And my brother used to be a big fan as well. He used to follow his beard styles all the time. He used to make new beard styles. We felt he was a cool guy, police advertisement for his shades. Until I heard his interview, and it was like,
Actually, I agree with what you're saying, because the UFC, the American public in general, there's always an issue with fighters that do not speak the English language. To them, if a fighter doesn't speak English, they don't want him or they don't care about him. Remember Anderson Silva back in the day when he first began in the UFC, his English wasn't that great.
Yeah.
So when I used to read all these comments, he was a killer. In his first fight, he destroyed Chris Lieben. Like, I've never seen a fight with pinpoint accuracy like I did
amazing.
during that fight. But even after he won the title from Rich Franklin and he had those post-fight interviews, people were complaining online about this guy doesn't speak English. There is this issue they have, which I think the rest of the world can use it against the UFC or use it against the American public.
It's a mixed martial art is not an English-speaking sport. It would have been if the rest of the world didn't accept it. I say 200 years of boxing. How many pro events did we have in boxing in Middle East? How many promotions do we have today for MMA in Middle East? You could have at least 2, 3, 4 counted in your hands that happen in Middle East. A country like India, who wins Olympic gold medals or Olympic medals, let's say podiums in boxing, didn't have a pro event. They spend the first 10 million maybe dollars on the first 3 events, each of them for SFL's events. MMA is growing faster than anything, more faster than football event. So if you say you have to still use the potential of the fastest growing sport in the world to English speaking sport, it's a disaster. So Brave is coming in, uniting the world together. Whatever the language, make one system, and that system cannot be by one promotion, one entity, or one person. It is 3, 4 entities coming together. You look at football, you can't just have FIFA. You need to have FIFA, you need to have UEFA, you need to have the national federations. There's so many factors attached to it. International level, amateur level, pro level, combined together 3, 4, 5 entities to make a sport. Sport is too big for one person. And if you were the one who started the sport, you would love to hold it together. And if it grew as fast as MMA did, you would never let it go. So that's the situation here. So we thought, okay, it is fair from UFC side or biggest promotion side. Let's go to the rest of the world and talk to them. And let's combine the rest of the world together. And we went to each region and we got a response that everybody were into events. They're like, oh, my brand value, my IP value, my content value, I need to get 5 million, 10 million, 3 million, 4. And we're like, we're trying to give you a solution because we are going to come in, regardless, yes or no. You're in it or not, but we're going to come in. But we want to make sure that we are not looking at region. You take the region and run it because you're already doing it. Go ahead. We just want to make one system and we'll all be a part of it. Regardless, right? Let's do it. And they all said, but my brand value is so much, so you need to pay me this much. I'm like, please, try to understand what we're trying to say. We are going to come whether you like it or not. We don't want conflict. We want to partner. If I fight with you, I have to fight with that country, this country, that. All the countries will have the same problem. But if I tell that country I have the rest of the world with me, you will join in to get the value of the global value. So today, for example, if Middle Eastern promotion or Indian promotion or Brazilian promotion are doing a great job locally, they will never be a star because let's be true to ourselves. We still need international people to say good about us to accept our star as a star.
Yeah.
I will always argue that Middle Eastern fighters are one of the best fighters. Until Brave came, we showed that Middle Eastern fighters can be the best in the world and they could compete against any UFC fighters or any fighter in the world that's there. But we still don't believe it. We don't believe it. We are still sitting here and saying we can't. Or we can't compare anybody to UFC. Or we can't do that because you don't believe it. You want UFC to say they're good. That's the only day you will believe it. Till then, you will disregard your people. You will disregard the hard work of people who put hard work. But then you see Ahmed Amir going and destroying Boogeyman on the floor. And then you see you have a guy in Bharat Kandare who I trained with. I know his level. And he's fought with the Brave and got destroyed. And then the next thing he signed with UFC. And you're like, why? Because that's 1.2 billion market right there, and you're not going to miss that out. Let's talk realistic. But the problem is not UFC, us, or anybody else. It's the media. They are not covering this because there's no journalist. Journalist's job is to tell the truth. But today, the MMA media is doing one thing. If you tell them I'm 1 billion valuation in Asia, I'm the largest promotion in Asia. Excuse me. When I studied in my 9th grade, they said Middle East was a part of Asia. They said that South Asia was part of the Asia. Basically, the most important thing for us ultimately is to use that system to get every country together. And we've tried that so hard, but never really came through. And eventually we decided, Sheikh Khalid was like, Let's create our own promotion. And again, I always use the word promotion, but sounds bad because it looks like a brand or an entity, and we have to. Why? Because since the world didn't join us for making it one and making it competing with, don't compete with each other. Let's compete with football. Let's compete with cricket. Let's compete with the rest of the world sport. We have the potential. No other combat sports till date had the potential of globalization like we did. No other sports had the potential of globalization like we did. We have it. Let's use it. Let's not forget about ticket sales. Let's forget about your regional money. And everybody's like, okay, so what's the plan? We need to get paid anyways. And we decided, let's go ahead. How do we go forward now? Let's start a promotion because that's the voice people understands. If I started with a complete model, bringing 3-4 entities together and creating a global system, it will take me 10 years before people actually understands one half of it. Let's start with something people understand, a promotion. What's the goal of the promotion? Globalization. That's it, nothing else. So everybody's like, you're stupid. I said, why? Because let's get the Middle East market first. And the Indians called me and said, let's get the Indian market first. And the Brazilians called me, let's get the... I'm like, yes, we'll get all these markets. Don't worry. But you all have needs. Let's go to the whole world. They're like, but it doesn't work. You have to get a fan base first. I said, I don't care about fans. We are trying to create a system that's more important today than anything else. So I don't care about the model you're following today. You're in the event business. I'm trying to create a sports business here for MMA. So we focused on sports business. Two things that we want to emphasize through Brave is one, the factor of globalization. We have traveled more than any other MMA promotion will travel in a year. We have gone to Africa, which is a continent that nobody can deny you don't have talent. If anybody tells...
Look at the UFC. If people believe the UFC is the best, they have 2 champions from Nigeria.
Exactly.
And they have Sadiq Yusuf just had a great showing. A former Brave. He won a quick fight, and Brave before actually getting into Dana White's Contender Series.
True. And we will skip Africa. We forget about Middle East. We forget about South Asia. We forget about South America even. And then you miss the biggest market, which is Europe. You know, and not biggest market in size, the biggest market in terms of
influence, maybe.
Yes, influence in making the sport globalized, truly global. So we really went into globalization. But when you look at how we traveled, we never went to travel to sell tickets or make the fight promotion. We went there to give the sports benefit. I would use the word empowering mixed martial art in that region. So you had UFC go to Brazil very often, once upon a time. And then it just all stopped to 1 to 2 events a year, you know. And then the Brazilian people are like, we still do have champions. We have still one of the best fighters, some of the best fighters in the world coming out of our country. Why did they stop? Economy, revenue, so many reasons.
Yeah. Again, the business event aspect that you were talking about, rather than the sports aspect.
So then you as Brazil, Mohammed, would ask, hold on. So you're not coming here because we don't have money or we don't have revenue to give you? What are you going to give us? You know, so you're coming here to take from us. So Brave showed that, okay, let's change the reputation of mixed martial art in Europe, Middle East, South Asia, South America, all of these places we went and we said what Brave, or in the name of Brave, of course, we had to do something that's common to everybody else. In the name of Brave, what mixed martial art as a sport can offer you, what mixed martial art as a sport can really give to your nation back. It will develop your economy. It will increase revenue in your country. It will increase tourism in your country. See, these are the factors that MMA can do. That's why you want F1 in your country. That's why you want Super Cup, Italian Super Cup in your country, or Champions League finals in your country, because they can contribute a lot for the nation. What can MMA contribute? Nothing. Just 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 people coming and drinking beer and watching 2 guys fight in a cage. We love the fights. We love the sport. But if you look at a bigger picture as a sport, what did you do for it? What did you as national events or UFC do for the sport of MMA? We all took the benefit from MMA. We all ripped it off A to Z, but we never gave back to the MMA as a community for what is a sport that has more potential than any other sport, and it's close to our hearts. So Brave took up that initiative and focused on 2 years. 2016 September we started in Bahrain, and we said we're leaving. We're never coming back till we go through around the world. So in 2017 we went around the world. We came back 2018. We covered every continent except Oceania. I think Australia, New Zealand is where we didn't go, but other.
I remember I interviewed His Highness before the Abu Dhabi event, and he mentioned we covered everywhere except for Australia. North America and Australia. So.
Yeah. We did go to
Is there a
Mexico.
plan to at least do Australia, maybe, or North America?
We have to. Mexico we did. So if you
Central, yeah, okay.
so if you think
Right.
about it, so most of the major continents, right? So Australia for sure, uh, but again, you see why we didn't go to USA or Japan. I mean, people are like, oh, go to USA, that's the biggest MMA market. I'm like, we're not trying to make money. I mean, like, we're going to market who can understand us, who can respect us, who can know what we're trying to do, and show the rest of the world that, see, this is what you missed, this is what you missed, this is what you missed. Now you understand. I'm just being a voice. So His Highness Sheikh Khalid has created this to become a voice, to tell people a speech that they've never heard before, a speech to wake them up, that they were always sleeping, and not a bad thing. We were all so in love. We were all so deeply engrossed in the beauty of mixed martial art and what's going on, and how Conor McGregor comes in and how he goes out and how he punches an old man. And we were just so excited about all these things that we forget about what it could be. And if there was no person like His Highness Sheikh Khalid who didn't think about it, because even I would have gone into that mode of the love mode, where he looked and he said, improve it, develop it. Today we have globalized the sport. Today we brought 61 countries as amateur level to Bahrain to compete in the World Championship. And tomorrow we will make sure that we create a global ecosystem in each country, each region. Like you mentioned, you have a national level, regional level. So if you have a national amateur champion who got 3 gold medals for 3 world championship, you're already a national hero, but not respected so well because it's amateur. And then you get into a national level of competition. We'll create a system that it becomes like football. You have the La Ligas and so on. So in that format, you're going to be a national champion regardless, because I love Rafa and you love Maharag and so on. So, and my player, I will show so much more. I will do a self-marketing without me even knowing it. And he will become a national personality without he knowing it or me knowing it. And it's a part of the system. You have to do it. Once that happens and you have the national competition, which is the regional competitions like the Champions League or so on, so you eventually tend to be someone that other nations start focusing on, because tomorrow you will have to compete against them and you become a part of the picture. Eventually you will have to go to the next step where you realize that you have to represent your nation at an international level. But then the question comes back is, do you have the money to do all this? Is there a cash flow in all of this? And that is where we want to bring in mainstream corporates into the business, not by going and pitching them, my brand is great, I have 20 million viewers, 10 million viewers, my fan base is so and so. That's old school. You're telling me that Intesa San Paulo Bank wants database from you, third largest bank in the world, 1 trillion asset management. They want your database, and your database is going to add more bank accounts to open in their bank. Come on, man. I mean, like, think smart. How do you attract these people? You attract them by making that event or that sport important. That sport should be important, where corporates needs to be a part of. Why corporates need to be a part of? Because it's a big part of the nation's development. And if you're, as a corporate, is involved in it, the development you'll be a part of, not by promotional development, you'll be a part in terms of everything that's attached to the nation. That's why that the public, the people are attached to that sport in a way that it's not just I watch a fight today. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle thing. That sport is a part of the lifestyle of the country, and then it is a part of a pride of a country. It's just like how Olympics turns out to be, where the governments are involved, where the nations are involved, where the corporates are involved, because that's a pride of the nation. And if you're going to get pride, the whole nation is going to get pride, because that's going to contribute to a nation's development. I want to be a part of that, because eventually we are the nation that makes money for ourselves. There's so much factors attached to it, but can MMA contribute what sports can contribute? The biggest sports in the world can contribute. Will it be able to contribute in the next 15 years? No, because nobody's working on it. This is where Brave is trying to build that ecosystem at national level and create a global ecosystem. So that's why we went and spoke to the promotions in the beginning. But of course, how will they be able to know what the future lies? And today we have achieved the position of being the only truly global MMA promotion. We don't care about what.
Just to put your words into numbers, I mean, 16 countries so far, 18 cities, 24 events only. But I really liked a quote by Vanderlei Silva, and I'm not trying to promote for you, but
Please do.
you're the promoter. But he said something that really, like got me. He said, "Brave takes the sport to places that I didn't even know had MMA," which is what I thought in the beginning, because I saw an event in Pakistan and I'm like, why are they going to Pakistan? And then I saw an event in forgot where, but I mean there are certain, like Northern Ireland. Why didn't they go to Dublin. Why did they go to Belfast? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Questions like that. Yeah. And of course the established places like Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Brazil.
Sure.
Maybe Mexico is not a big MMA scene. They're a big boxing scene for sure. So these countries that you end up going to, or these cities, and these deals you make with the local governments, like Colombia or I believe India, you did the same. India actually, you have influential guys. Sunil Shetty, I think, isn't it?
Sunil Shetty, yeah, who was in Bahrain.
You have some celebrities with you. I mean, there's quite a buzz in each city you go to, almost, you know?
And it's undiscovered, and it comes from a story of what Bahrain was once upon a time when people didn't realize what mixed martial art is and what it is today, the biggest hub for mixed martial art in the whole of Middle East. It's the places where people don't know about, like for example Pakistan. I mean Brazil, of course, but the reason Brazil is because they need respect. Let's give the respect back to them. They are the ones, I mean arguably one of the places where MMA started in one way or the other, you know, a place where MMA was promoted due to the jiu-jitsu background that also came from Brazil. And from your last podcast, it shows very clearly how jiu-jitsu was a big factor for development of MMA. With all that saying, and to disrespect them by first giving them a lot and they contributing to MMA by having a lot of champions and then cutting that off because, hey, where's my money? You know, so we want to give that back to Brazil, and they really understand that. And we are today, in media-wise, there is nobody that Brazil talks about more than UFC and Brave at this point, not even the local promotions. Africa, because it would be, somebody has slapped me on the face if we don't go to Africa, because that's a continent that really deserves to be a part of any sport, you know, that you can think of. A huge amount of talent that comes out of there, and I can't understand till today why nobody went there. Keep the corporate side outside, but otherwise, logically, you know, I mean, just think about the talent-wise.
You even did you even gave them a big event. Yeah, you did a combat week for them too.
Yes,
back in South Africa, right?
South African Combat Week we did in South Africa. The first event in Morocco. Hopefully the first event of MMA in Morocco. First international event. Hopefully in the future in Egypt also is something we're going to be planning on. But Pakistan was special because.
Some good fights too. I did commentary on that event. Surprisingly, there were some exciting fights.
And when people said, "Why are you going to Pakistan?" Just the same question, why Pakistan? You know, out of all the places, why Pakistan? And I said, as my research into places, Pakistan has events that are actually selling pay-per-view. And people are like, what? I said, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it works. All I'm saying is the interest that they have. Do they have MMA being shown on TV? No. They have anything that can get the people, the public attracted to MMA. Any way they can access MMA? No. Other than internet. It was the most organic growth of love for mixed martial art I've seen in the whole world. But Pakistan doesn't know it. Pakistan government didn't know it. Pakistan corporates didn't know it. Pakistan sports industry didn't know it. I went to show them this exists. The partnership was not with the government. Partnership was between me and the athletes. I told them, let's do it together. Let's show them what we got. So you saw the fights. They put their heart and soul into it, and they showed what Pakistani fighters are all about.
And there was even a guy with we call them, I mean, people with disabilities. But honestly, I don't even want to call him that. I mean, it's, I mean, we are the disabled if that's the case, because he fought. It wasn't even his first fight, maybe, but that was one of the fights that I still remember. So yeah, I forgot the guy's name, but I still remember that fight because it was kind of unique to have somebody like that get in a cage and fight.
Yeah, and all of his fights are and Nizam. I'm not sure exactly what his name was, but all of his fights are a finish. And I was like, is this gonna be a finish in Brave? And he showcased the talent. But everybody that day came to put on a show. They all came telling Brave, let's do it together. That's why they loved us so much, because they're like, we did it together. And then when the fight was over and people are like, oh, Brave, you're happy? The government people and all of them, they came, you're happy to come to Pakistan and do a show? I said, hold on. You thought I'm here and you have to ask me if I'm happy? Me and the fighters did this show for you. So you know what talent you have in your country. So you know what are the heart and soul of the athletes that you have in your country. They are one of the most talented out of the whole of South Asia that I've seen. You know, I've gone to India, I've seen athletes from Bangladesh, but one of the most talented is Pakistani fighters. They have the heart, they have the soul, and they don't have the resources.
Platform, maybe.
Yeah, they don't have the resources, but they're really developing at a higher level. And that's why that we had to show that to Pakistan. We had to show what Pakistan had in Pakistan. It was nothing to do with the world. So these are the things that we have to do. Does it have anything to do with brand development? Does it have anything to do with the market share of Brave? No, it's simply to do with the future plan in 5 years. Inshallah, we'll sit down again on a podcast after 5 years. Hopefully, we'll discuss and we'll say, remember when we had our old podcast 5 years back and we said that we'll change the mixed martial world and put it into the same par as the rest of the sports? That's the goal. We are not talking as a benchmark as UFC. We're not talking our benchmark as NFL. Muhammad, our benchmark as Brave Combat Federation is FIFA. And anything less than that is a shame. We shouldn't be in this doing this. I mean, that was never our plan. His Highness was never planning to make a business and start making some good revenue out of the MMA promotion.
But when you say you're not, so basically you're equating the UFC and ONE and everyone else as a professional league like NBA, NFL, right? And you're saying Brave is more like FIFA, which is a governing body. How does that make sense? Like, do you see a governing body being created in the future, or do you see Brave as turning into a governing body in the future?
No, it is definitely not Brave turning into a governing body, but the governing body is going to be formed at that level. And that's why I said no one brand or one promotion can take over the sport, not even Brave. It's not about Brave. It's about mixed martial art. Brave is today the front face of this vision, which is why I said Brave is a vision. And so we had to make it a promotional format which everybody understands, so we can go to each of the countries and do what we are doing and what we've done till now and tell them, now you know Brave? Yes, we know Brave. Each of the countries, what we've contributed as Brave? Yes. What are we taking MMA from an event business to a sports business? Once we make it into a sports business and give the value of sports to each nation, like we do in each country that we go to, the next step would be to take it from there and say, let's collaborate with other entities.
But don't you feel like you're falling into the same trap as these guys? You've done entertainment. You've brought in singers, bands and stuff. I feel like you're pressured into doing stuff like that because that's what everyone expects, right? So you're falling into the trap. How do you avoid falling into that trap?
No, give it. I think, for example, culture matters. When you want to make a sports global, you have to be gifted by understanding different cultures. The moment you don't understand cultures, for example, you and I will know very well, and a lot of people agree to this fact that if we had a Bahraini or an Emirati fighter who acts like Conor McGregor, we would be ashamed a little bit. Not that we wouldn't support him, maybe we would still, but we would be a little bit ashamed to have him being the biggest representative of our country.
He wouldn't be marketed, I guess, mainstream-wise.
Yes, and he would always, maybe as a person, as an individual, our heroes would always be humble. It's just a cultural stuff. And I'll give you another example, even better example. If you go to India or Southeast Asia, you look at ONE FC and stuff, they promote athletes about their romantic life, how he and his girlfriend had a good life. And so if I make Hamza Kohijis and his girlfriend's life, he doesn't have a girlfriend. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So,
there are sensitivities in each culture, for sure. Yeah.
And he wouldn't be able to go and meet his friends outside, and they would be like, it's just a cultural stuff, and you have to understand this culture. So when you go to India, they say, hey, add glamour to your to your event, and I said, but I never break the barrier of the vision. We always value what we have to do. For example, we go to UK. Oh, it's a place where MMA is known. Bama, Cage Warriors, Cage Legacy. You have so much MMA going on there, UFC, Bellator. Let's go there and sell tickets. No, that's where we did the invite-only event. Because the agenda was first to develop and empower the sport. When we went to India, yes, we had celebrities. Yes, we will make a song. But we never made celebrities, Bollywood stars, more bigger than MMA. And if you look at our Hyderabad event or Mumbai event, there was no concert. There was nothing. They came, they sat, they watched, they go back. But if you have to be the star, no. There's no bigger star than an MMA fighter, unless you're going for a war.
Do the fighters feel that in Brave?
I hope so. And like I say, I hope they feel. We tried to make that happen. We've never had someone say otherwise, and if they do as well, I hope.
Do you have an open door policy with fighters? Do they speak to you directly, or do you have what's the?
Many fighters do speak to me directly, but I am not the best at being able to keep up to it. But I try my best. But the good part is all the fighters, they understand my delays. So if I don't answer in a week's time, even they do understand. They hold back, and when I go back and I say I'm really sorry, but they do understand. But the most interesting part is, I don't have to have an open door policy because the biggest open door policy they have is with Sheikh Khalid. Most of the matches are made by Sheikh Khalid. You know, he's like, okay, this guy's gonna fight this guy, that guy's gonna fight this guy, and I'm like, what's my job? You know, so he's everybody talks to him. He never not answers the fighters. He's always answering the fighters. It's not that he's operating it, but he's always there, and he calls me and he tells me, you know, this fight needs it. So even if I miss out, on fighters, he's always there. So who am I to not be able to answer the fighters? You know, yes, I'm busy, but in the end of the day, we're all one team, you know. So even if the fighters feel that way tomorrow at some point or something, but the eyes is on the goal to develop the sport of mixed martial art, and that is ultimate, you know. So the small things at this point where it is, yes, we are in the promotion business. We can't be in one day. It takes 5-6 years. This plan, the long-term plan of making MMA into a sports business, it's a 5 to 6 years plan. So today we are in the promotional business. We are just globalizing the sport. We are giving the sports, globalizing it, making it into a sports business rather than an event business, and giving the value of what sports can give to the nations. That's simply a black and white goal of what we are trying to do. Everything else is secondary, but that does not mean that everything else is happening. We don't value it. We understand the culture in different places. So we use the culture to get that voice more bigger, and eventually we have a voice to talk to each nation from a different platform where they value you, not because you're a business property or because you're making $1 billion. It's because of how much importance you have as a property, and that's what matters. And I think today's MMA community communication that you have every day, including your first podcast, was always about today's problem of MMA, and nobody's looking at the future. And they're all into the brand business, event business, and I'm not saying money is a bad thing or making money, but I would tell you, Muhammad, is Brave Combat Federation took that risk with a different agenda. Our focus was different, but fortunately, we've got media rights in Middle East that we thought that will never happen usually unless you give out a lot. We got media rights in India, we got media rights in Brazil, we got media rights in Pakistan by one of the largest TV networks, ARY. So eventually the governments started funding it, the biggest corporates started investing in it because of globalizing and doing the right thing. And I said, maybe karma exists, you know. I sat and I said, wow, you know, I'm not a businessman, I'm not claiming to be the greatest businessman, but I'm saying that was not the intention as well. I would say I'm not a businessman because that was not our intention. But doing the right thing, globalizing it was what was missing to sports to develop. And I was like, this is what we were saying. Increasing the cash flow is by creating a new system. So when I tell people about the new system, they're like, it's never going to happen. And you'll never stop thinking UFC and Bellator and so is bigger. You'll never stop thinking about it until that day comes. The same day that I faced when I was looking for the next 3310s or 3140s or N30 or whatever it is, or Nokia. If you told me that Nokia would disappear tomorrow, I would say...
Nobody expected anything to happen in a lot of generations.
Exactly. And then next day I wake up in the morning, I mean, not literally, but next day I wake up and then I'm on Samsung. Wasn't that a fridge company? I mean, what happened, you know? Now we're all on iPhones and Samsungs, and we never heard of this. We were looking for the next 3310s, you know, and what happened? No, it was not a competition with the mobile industry. It was just a new system that came in called smartphones and touchscreens and all that stuff. And when the new system came in, it changed everything. And you will forget the old behind, and it has to happen. It has to happen, not because of competition. It's because something better comes in. And we hope somebody, and that's why I always tell what the business plan is, if not very accurately, because I hope somebody takes up and does this, because we are doing this for the love of the sport. And if somebody does it, it's just going to grow faster and we achieve the goal faster. But today, MMA industry is Nokia, and we are the Apple of MMA industry, you know. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's a good one. But okay, before we move into the controversial topics that I'm sure a lot of people want to listen to and hear about what you have to say about, you kind of talked a little bit about the IMMAF World Championships and how the relationship started with even before Brave existed, by sending in your team, fighting in those championships, talking to them. What was the thinking process behind investing in that amateur system as a Bahraini entity? Like, how did that happen, and when did you guys decide that the World Championship should be bigger than what it already was in Vegas. That it should come here and we should give it a more professional look within an amateur, setting.
Everything was a part of the jigsaw puzzle. So the whole picture, it comes from different angles. Brave is a small piece of it, which was later stages. But the reason for Brave to happen or to be found was everything else, So, and then Brave becomes a part of that piece. And tomorrow there's going to be 10 other pieces that's going to come in, which the news will come out this year and next year about a lot more new things that's going to be attached to it. But like you said, the 4 areas at the KHK team to test the resources and how it's going to benefit was one of the reasons why the amateur team actually started, to see what can we do with our amateur team. And of course, Sheikh Khalid, forget about MMA, Sheikh Khalid and His Highness Sheikh Nasser always try to develop sports in the country, whether it's triathlon, whether it's football, whether it's any other sports, and the sports industry in the country has gone upside down from the past 5-6 years, with F1 coming in. Bahrain Merida became the Tour de France first team for Tour de France. Now we have Bahrain team just won the West African championships in athletics. We've been winning.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So in Asian, to compete against China in athletics, in the Asians, and it's just, you're competing with China, so in many areas, MMA #1 in the world. It's just the competition has just in sports have changed a lot, and that's what their vision is. His Highness Sheikh Nasser and Sheikh Khalid, they've been focusing on that a lot. So when we did the amateur level of national team, it was not only that, but it was also about the idea of changing the youth's perspective about combat sports. Let's get them more involved in sports that are tougher, like wrestling, like jiu-jitsu, sambo, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Let's do the combats. Let's spread the combat sport. And where do we start from? Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, karate. No, let's start with MMA. Everything else is involved in that, So start from the top. And everything is a part of it, so it's going to spread much more easily. And then the national team was created. So where do we compete? IMMAF was there at that point, existing in USA. It was happening. The World Championship happened at the UFC Fight Week. We competed in the Europeans and won our first bronze medal, I guess. Maybe I could be wrong, but we found, I don't know if it was Worlds or Europeans, but we won our first bronze medal.
Maybe Hussein Ayad, I think he won something as a Bahraini. I'm not sure when exactly, but he had a bronze medal somewhere. Not during the World Championship, during one of those events overseas.
We had a guy called Fahad Abdul Razak, was our first bronze medalist. He was a young kid, super talented.
But before I forget, Hussein Ayad, first of all, before I ask that question, just answer yes or no. Do you consider Desert Force a professional organization or an amateur organization?
I cannot.
Is it pro or amateur?
I really don't know. I mean,
because it's related to my next question.
I know. Because if it is a pro or amateur, it should be.
Does a fighter fighting in Desert Force has that win or loss in his pro record? Yes or no?
It should be. It should be. I think so.
Okay. How did a fighter like Hussein Ayad fight 1 or 2 times in Desert Force and ended up back in the amateur ranks again?
Yeah.
How did that fall through?
And that's what I was telling Hamza too. I was telling Hamza,
you said in the beginning you really wanted these guys to start amateur, 100%. But there was there was nothing at the beginning, right?
Sadly.
So how did you convince the IMMAF that this is just an Arab league? And it's kind of...
No, because there's a lot of events in the world that is actually not considered as somehow, I don't know who considers this, by the way. But like you said, do you consider... For me, I don't know. Like for example, like for me, do I consider the SFL fights even today as pro? No.
What constitutes pro versus amateur? That's the thing. Because sometimes you don't use knee pads or whatever, and you can just fight. Maybe it's just the round system that's different. 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes.
Sometimes it's just even the quality.
But you can still get punched in the face.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just even quality. I mean, like I was saying, today I watch a lot of SFL fights, and I don't know if it's amateur or pro. Would you take one of those fighters and put him in a Brave event, a UFC event, or a ONE FC event? It hurts my heart to think about it. Like when they take some guys for the sake of the market.
Actually, just to be fair, ONE Championship had a lot of fights that had me wondering, is this amateur or pro? Like they had fighters that had no, like I don't even know how they were in a cage, to be honest. Like I don't want to mention any names, but I'm just telling you that even organizations that are perceived to be big organizations have had lackluster fights. I mean,
Exactly.
it happens, right?
It's definitely a part of it. But I think that's why system is so important, right? So who are me or you or anybody else? Who are we to judge? Like people, when I was in Colombia doing a press conference, they were like, "Oh, who's gonna be the next? Who's gonna be the fighter you're gonna choose from Colombia to fight at the Brave Colombia on September 7th? Because we're doing a Road to Brave Warriors selection program." I said, "Who am I to choose?" Our whole goal, His Highness's vision, is to make sure that the sport is tomorrow in a position where an athlete should only have the talent. If he has a talent, there's a system he can climb. God forbid he's not injured, a serious injury. He should have a platform that he can climb to be the best he can be without even being able to speak English or marketability or how he looks or where he comes from. So now, who am I, Dana White, or anybody else to decide? No man should be able to decide that.
The reason why I'm not trying to focus on this a
Yeah.
lot, but the reason why I asked you this is because this is a struggle going on in boxing right now. I fear it's gonna, happen in MMA as well, because in boxing, of course, ABA is in deep trouble right now. It's corruption, and I believe they're suspended for a while. But there is an issue going on at the beginning. There was a rule that came out that professionals could compete in amateur tournaments, the Olympics, right?
In the boxing, yes.
Exactly. And
True.
there was talk that Pacquiao will fight
Yes.
in the next Olympics or something like that. There was this thing, like, how can you allow a professional to go and fight in amateur? So boxing was going the route of making, because they felt that the amateur business is weak, to market. So they wanted to bring in the professionals so that it becomes a marketable arena, or you know what I mean? Do you think that's a risk that MMA is going to eventually find itself in? Because we're going to talk about it now. There is prize money involved starting next World Championship, right? So you're kind of playing around with the professional.
So your
right?
question becomes more relevant. How do we justify between amateur and pro? Now even the pay is there. I mean, but in the end of the day, it's. I think the pro and amateur is just focused on, I think, the system itself. If you make a strong system where you say you're a fighter coming out of the gym, have you ever fought before? No. You cannot fight pro unless you have X amount of amateur fights. There's no. You should have step-by-step transition. Is it going to happen today? No. Will it happen tomorrow? There's if somebody's working on it. So, for example, let me give you a simple example. Let's put up Bahrain as an example. Let's say. So today we have a boy called Abdullah. Let's say he wants to be an MMA fighter. He goes to a gym, trains MMA, and so on. So, what is his next step? He needs to be in the national tryout. So you should have 4 to 5 national events a year. That for qualifying for points wise, so you get X amount of points if you win X amount of bouts, so you will be qualified next year into the national team. So then you go to the national tryout, so everybody is a part of, no biased, my gym, your gym, everybody competes, the winners get points, and then they'll be registered under the federation's record in the application, and then they go to the national team. The national team scouts them, and then they have this national team qualification program, which is you have 20 fighters or 50 fighters in the national team. Only the top 10 goes or top 20 goes. I'm just giving an example. Again, it could be different system or different numbers to be in the to compete for the IMMAF World Championship or Europeans, Asians, so and so. They compete 4 events a year. You have the Asians, you have the Europeans, you have the Oceanians, you have one more I forgot. But anyways, you compete 3 or 4 times a year. Youth will be youth, seniors will be seniors, and the cadets will be cadets. And the 3 different age groups will be competing. And once they compete with the growth factor, again, points will be there for your national team. So you will select who will be the 2 people in each weight class that goes to the Worlds. On that point, you go to the Worlds. You compete in Worlds. This is your choice. 1 Worlds, 2 Worlds, 3 Worlds, based on the gold. If you take 3 gold medals, you want to continue doing it, up to you. I mean, you can go and take gold medal till you're 40 years old. That's your choice. But after 1, 2, or 3 gold, depends on whatever the time is, you're eligible to go into
to the professional. But this is not something written on paper, right? This is just an idea that
5 years from now, everything is going to be there. Believe me, 5 years from now, you will see a very strong system that's going to collaborate amateur, pros, national, regional, World Cup for MMA, all of this together. And we will remember that we started Ultimate Fighting Championship because to find the ultimate fighting champion. That was the beauty of that name. It was Ultimate Fighting Champion. And we want to see who's the best fighter in the world. So we bought boxers, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, everybody to compete against each other to find who's the best fighter in the world. And then we forgot that at some point, because we were struggling, all of us, you, me, Dana White, all of us were struggling because we're all MMA lovers, struggling to be accepted by the non-MMA community. And at that point, whatever it takes to win and be accepted was important, so we could continue and make it bigger. So what we did, we made it marketable, we made the rules and regulations, we changed a lot of things to be accepted, the name changed and all of that stuff, and eventually we reached a point where we're accepted, and we're all like, we did it, you know, and then let's continue. And then we started growing and growing, and we reached, and we forgot about where we came from, what was the beginning stages. And today we reached to a point that acceptance became so good that I got addicted to the acceptance. And I don't want to find out who's the best fighter in the world. I want to find out who's the one that can sell the highest tickets now. So if I told you that I am going to make a competition between Alexander the Great, Bruce Lee, Genghis Khan, all together under one tournament, and then you tell me, Shahid, I can't have Genghis Khan, he doesn't speak English. I would be
Again, yeah, it's
you know, so it's nobody's fault. Again, I always say, you know, because it's a process. We all went through hardship. It was a process that changed our mind. So let's go back to that. Let's bring the world together and find out who the best fighter in the world is. Let's make a system that can do that unbiased way, where I or you don't have control over it. Let it be a system that provides it, that who's going to be fighting for the title, all the questions will be answered. Who's going to be the next champion? Who's going to be fighting for the title? Why did he get a title fight? Why is this guy a pro? Why is this guy an amateur? All our questions that we're talking today, and we have been talking for the past 10 years, will be answered. You know, but it's the system. But who's going to work on it? One person cannot. Not UFC, not Brave cannot. Not MMAF alone cannot. It has to be 3-4. You need the amateur, you need Brave, you need regional, you need national. Everybody coming together, and it's happening. It is happening, and that's what Brave is focusing on. If I focused on making how much revenue I made in each event, if Khalid focused on making that the priority of how much fan base we have or how much, then none of this would be. It wouldn't be growing as fast. So when we say we're the fastest growing MMA promotion in the world, keep everything else aside. It is talking about, you can talk about market share value, but that's not what we're talking about. We're really talking about fastest growing in the sense actually growing mixed martial art, you know, and the right way. And it will hit as negative to the competition who considers this as a competition. I say we're not playing tug of war. They say tug of war is between two people pulling the same rope. We are pulling a completely different rope here. Try to understand that we are not competing with anybody. We came before competing to all of the promotion and spoke to you to help us out. One brand, one name, one vision, one system. Everybody is a part of it. We don't want to be a part of it. We're just putting the system together. But they said brand value. But they said 1.6 million. But they said IP rights. We stood back and we had to do what we had to do. Today, we have the biggest world championship happening, not at UFC Fight Week. It's happening at Brave Combat, International Combat Week. And in the future, it's all the nations that we thought couldn't be in UFC will have the opportunity to become the best they want to be, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's Brazil, whether it's Mexico, whether it's Morocco, whether it's Egypt, whether it's India, Sri Lanka, Italy, France, wherever it is. Let them all have the opportunity, regardless of whatever it is. Let them all work hard. But if you don't have the talent, that's your problem. You know, I'm sorry, but if you have the talent, you better, wherever you're from, middle class, lower class, whatever class, whichever country, fight, and your fight will tell the story. And nobody can hide that if the system is right.
One last question before we move to the fluffy stuff. Bahrain organized the IMMAF World Championships for 3 years. Or 2 years. Now this is the third one. What happens in 2020? Does Bahrain continue hosting the event, or does the event truly become a world championship and starts moving around everywhere else?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it keeps moving around the world, and I think that we've taken it there. Two things very important. One is the event. It's not about how good the event is itself, but it, like we discussed before, does it add the value, like bringing an Olympics or combat games or bringing some kind of any other world championship to your country? Is it as big as that? So the UFC Fight Week events didn't give it that value. It was not even in the same stadium. It was somewhere else in a corner that nobody even knew. It was not marketed. So with Bahrain, it became a festival. It became a festival called Brave International Combat Week, where it's expos and buses and cars. You see, the Bahrain will be branded Brave. And it's all for the World Championship and the Brave event. And it's unbelievable. We have celebrities from all around the world, government officials from around the world coming and enjoying, supporting their own country to beat other countries, and it's so much fun. That's what we wanted from MMA World Championship. I need Australian businessmen coming to cheer for them. I need Indian celebrities, Bollywood stars coming here and cheering for their fighter. Pakistani TV guys, government. That's what World Championship is all about. And we bought that to World Championship of IMMAF. And there's two factors to it. Now, it's so big that we set a bar high. So there's no way somebody should take it and do something smaller than what we did. It has to be bigger.
It has to be. Yeah.
So we put up a bar so high that we said tomorrow it can go away, but not for 200,000, 1 million, do something big for it. Let it be always this bar be the bar that you can never cross. Let this be a world championship better than most of the other world championship that happens in terms of entertainment, in terms of celebration, in terms of involving the world of 60 countries, and 60 countries, important people should be a part of it. That value should be given. So that bar is set. This year we're going to break every year's bar, so finally the last bar will be the biggest bar or the tallest bar that we're going to be setting. And the second thing is to make sure that the amount of value we got or we've given it the power to get is important through relationships over the years. So I think the next time it's the countries that's going to be pitching to get the World Championship, it's only going to contribute towards the development of the federation. So the International Federation needs that hosting rights, people wanting to host it. Yes, you have to set the bar, but if I don't want to host it, it's pointless. So we want them to want to host it, and that is why we want to empower it. That's why empowering MMA is such a big word. So once that happens, and when they host the World Championships, I think it's going to empower the MMA financially, which is going to allow it to do so much more things. That they have amazing plans. They have amazing plans at the amateur grassroots level. It's just a matter of implementation. And if they get that hosting taken care of in different countries, it's going to be amazing. Now you see Asians and Europeans, so many countries where the event goes to, they're trying to implement what they saw in Bahrain. And that is something that we start sharing with each other and say, why not next year we contribute this? Some countries cannot show up to Bahrain. Why not we help you bring your country to Bahrain? So you get benefit in your country from your government or from your people to show that, okay, see that the talent I had. So if a Brazilian came from Brazil, they couldn't compete the federation. So we supported them to bring one athlete here, came here, took a gold medal and went back. France.
It only takes one.
Yeah. Same thing with France, right? It was banned or till the recent announcement for the last World Championship, came here, took a gold and went back. And I'm like, now go back and show them the medal, and see what we can do. Maybe it doesn't work out, but still give it a shot. We're all with you. We're all one team. So we're all helping each other. And I think if somebody hosts it, it should happen so that it can develop IMAF. But we are always there here. In the end, nobody's leaving hands. We are here. If somebody hosts, we will go there and work with that country to make it even better than what we had. If they don't, if there's no other host, we are still here. We will make it better than what we had this year anyways. So we're all together. We're all going for development. It's never about what they get or we get. We're all on the same goal. We all have the same vision and development of the sport called mixed martial art. And that is the ultimate goal. And when you think of at that level, everything else what's happening today is at a smaller level. We forget about it. We tend to forget and we look at a bigger vision. And that's why it was very important to address that Brave is not a promotion, it's a vision. So then every other conversation what we have, if we put our mindset there, everything is understandable of what we're doing.
I love that. Honestly, I think what the competitive advantage for Brave, because I do commentary for a lot of shows, is the focus on the amateur system and how it can be brought up to the professional system. And I've seen even on some of your events, you start out with the local talent, maybe in the amateur system in that specific country, like in Indonesia you did, in Pakistan, even in Colombia I saw the poster, there were some amateur fights in the beginning. This is what I feel the competitive advantage of Brave, against other promotions, and I'm a fan of that, to be honest. But let's move on to, because I fear we're gonna run out of time. Honestly, I didn't expect to be here with you after the interview with Mohammed Mirza. I thought that you were the type that's going to be like, I'm not even going to bother answering him. But why do you think someone like him, who you had a big relationship with, your guys fought for him many times, and even Sheikh Khalid attended his events, and the Bahrain event was a success. Sheikh Nasser met the Desert Force guys. He even infamously posted a like 2 pictures on his Instagram of the Desert Force gloves and stuff like that. They were into it, you know. So why do you think all of a sudden Mohammed Mirza didn't have anything good to say, whether it's on Brave or even UAE Warriors or any other organization? Even the UFC didn't get his, like a good impression on him. He thought that they were an organization that just came, did what they, as you said, they came, they didn't see any business in the beginning, and they left. So why do you think when it came to regional promotions built within the Middle East like his, why does he have that hate on these organizations?
It's a lot to do again. So there's, we spoke about a lot about developing MMA at the bigger level. Let's talk about the grassroots now. Let's talk about the regional level, which comes to your point. And I've been a part of a lot of things. I've been a part of building a whole national federation. I've been part of building a separate national federation that competed with the national federation I helped build. And I've been also part of building a state federation. And today, this is none of them in Bahrain, outside Bahrain. And today, I'm also, I could say, a small part of building MMA in the country. So with all of this, you tend to learn a lot of things about regional MMA and the competition. And Mohammed, you'll be shocked when I say that you go to a country and you see 4 federations in those countries, in the country, fighting against each other and blocking each other from development of MMA. And then you're like, guys, let's all join hands. And that sounds so great, but it's never going to happen, right? Many countries, I don't want to mention, I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue to speak about 3-4 countries, but it'd be bad to do that. But there are countries that I almost ended up screaming at people, yelling, it's not my country, it's nothing I have to do. But I'm like, it doesn't make sense. What are you, children? So the answers are very simple, and we could sit and laugh about it when you see the answers. And such a simple thing, they try to make it big. At the regional level, the goal is this, like the people that told me, you're starting Brave, start Middle East. Focus on Middle East, get a fan base in Middle East without understanding what your goals are. Because they don't have the understanding of sports industry. They don't know what's going on. So basically what they do is they end up reaching to a point where they say, what's the most logical and the business strategy, which sounds like a great business strategy, is let's get a fan base in the territory, let's start selling merchandise and everything to that fan base. Once you get that database in that fan base, let's use that to grow internationally gradually to GCC and so on. And then outside of that country to regional level. So you have this long-term plan, which sounds all nice and beautiful and bubbly. And then you reach to a point where you're building it in the region and you try everything, sacrifice everything and start building in the region. And you start working on that fan base in the region, focusing on that brand's development. And of course, if a new brand comes in that starts providing them something better of globalization opportunity, it's definitely not going to be something that you're happy with, But I don't think that's what made him so angry. I mean,
what was the nature of the relationship before that?
No, I didn't have a relationship with him in the sense that I just came to know his name was Mohammed Mirza when I saw your podcast. Okay. I thought he was Zaid Mirza. But okay. I know now I know after the podcast, it gave me a lot of information about him. I met him twice, that's all. I met him twice. I've had Hamza fight in Desert Force when Desert Force came to Bahrain, and we went to Jordan a couple of times. But my relationship was just meeting them 2 times, discussing several discussions about being a part of the regional promotion. Let's combine together and so on. So it's the same thing I went to talk to SFL and everybody else. The pitch of Brave coming in the future. And we never went to a country and surprised anybody. We knew we don't want to be a challenge. We want to have a positive approach, and we've mentioned to anybody. And that is something you should ask. If you ask all of these guys, everybody knows before Brave started, Brave 1, we went to everyone and discussed the idea.
Including them.
To discuss about the collaboration. Of course, I don't expect to sit here and say, I told you so, I would love to do that. But I would never say that. But at that point, I truly understand if tomorrow somebody comes to me and says, I'm going to bring courage, and I'm not going to be like, oh, I'll never have a faith in you want to make courage and I will take out Brave and put courage. Of course, you're going to value your brand. You're going to tell him to pay you, whatever it is. There's a business corporate way of doing it. And I understand that. But we did our part, It's totally understandable. So for me, it was very straightforward. We had to do what we had to do, but we wanted to get a regional from any country we go to. We have like Colombia, LFC, amazing what they've done with Colombian MMA. We gave them, the Brave is run in Colombia by LFC and the National Federation of Colombia. 2 top people who knows better than I will ever forget. they know that much about Colombian MMA. And I will add my globalization value to it, the global effect to what you do locally. That's the cooperation we need.
So you see it as more of a selfish type of thing, that you weren't selfish. You gave the Colombians, who are a smaller organization when we talk about market share, because they haven't gone outside of Colombia, but you feel that Desert Force did not want to surrender any opportunities like that. They owned the Arab market and they wanted you to just.
We were coming in regardless, I mean, if you could be there or you could not be there, but we are coming in regardless. So we don't want to make sure that we affect your growth. You've done a lot in the region, hands down. Just like what LFC has done in Colombia, what SFL has done in India, what anybody has done, each of Bama has done in Europe, what done in Europe, Desert Force has done in Middle East. I've been dealing with all the countries. Desert Force is one of the everybody else. So, like what UFC has done for mixed martial art in the past 25 years, everybody has done a great job. We're only talking about evolution, and it's not wrong, it's natural. So we're talking about evolution. Let's evolve it to the next step. How can what you did in the region take it to the next step? It needs to benefit. So you've done X amount in a region. Let's take that to a global level. But we don't have the investment to put in globally. No, it's okay. It's okay. You do what you're doing locally, but get the global value, because somebody else will do the rest of the parts. So you today, if your brand is the same brand called Brave, your athlete who was fighting in Arab promotion today is now going to be fighting and the rest of the world watching. What happens to you is your advertisement, because you're talking corporate. Mm-hmm. So your advertisement opportunity increases, your media rights value increases, because in the end of the day, it reaches to your database and your fan base. That's your market share eventually. And most importantly, the valuation of your company within that region increases on one signature on a paper. The moment you finish the signature on the paper, the valuation of your company doubles it, because your market share increased now. Simple as that. Your goodwill increased now. Your partnerships increased now. Nobody's asking any money here. So you would have been saved from everything that happened today. But I'm not talking specifically about Desert Force. It's the same story in every other country. And that's why for me, when they said, oh, you heard what happened, what Desert Force guys told him. So who's this guy? I said, the Mirza, one of the Mirzas. And I said, believe me, if you go to India and do a podcast there, you would hear the same thing from India, and the Indian people are talking about it, like I mentioned to you. But it's in their communities, and it has to be there. They have their problems. We're here to help. And
So do you feel this is a more, this is like a bigger problem in the region, whereas it's not only them, everyone else doesn't work with anyone else. Like, I've heard you've approached UAE Warriors somehow, and maybe they weren't interested, or there wasn't like an agreement between you two. Like, it seems like everyone wants to go solo, and nobody believes in that one vision. You know what I mean? Do you feel, is that what you're saying? Because you mentioned India, everyone's fighting, and then here it could be Mirza, it could be anyone else. Yeah. If I did an interview with UAE Warriors, maybe they'll be more diplomatic, but maybe they'll have their own vision too, right?
It will come. It will happen. It will happen. The collaboration will happen, because we spoke at the wrong time, right? Before Brave ever existed. I mean, if Desert Force was existing today, and we spoke today, it would have been a different story. So at that point, I understand them totally. Why would anybody accept it? So does UAE Warriors, and that's what with India as well. But today we go to Colombia, we go to Brazil, we go to India. Everywhere we have the capacity to bring people together. So alhamdulillah, we've earned that reputation. We've earned that respect from the community to bring them together. If I go to Egypt, if I go to Jordan, if I go to each of these countries, if there's a problem between federations or promotions, they will all come together, because they're like, this is not Brave coming here in the name of a promotion and making an event. No, this is Brave coming in the name of a vision and making sure that the MMA in this country grows. And we've all been fighting each other to do that. So let's all join hands for this event and partner with Brave to grow together in this country. If Egypt grows, it will lead MENA in the sense Africa will be led by Egypt. Africa could be led by Egypt or South Africa. These are the two countries that could lead MMA in Egypt and MMA in Africa. You have the potential. Stop fighting and let's do it. I'm not saying they are, but I'm just giving an example. Same thing with India. You are more valuable than China. Because you go to China and your YouTube, Facebook, none of this works. India, you have all of this. The market of 1.2 billion is gold. That's how big it is. let's use it. Stop fighting, you know. So and now today they're respected. They invite us. They're happy. The government is supporting. The public is supporting. The corporate industry is supporting. So I think today it will be different, and slowly we're changing it. And I think so will happen Middle East as well. It's not as active as it used to be before, you know, the Middle East MMA promotions, but it's there. It's there, and I think a lot of partnership is going to happen in the future. The federations are with us. They're all working, helping with each other. The Saudi Federation has been so helpful for the last Brave event, and they all understand the vision. They all respect it. We all are part of one group. Nobody's looking at it as a event that's coming to threaten our revenue, you know. So everyone understands. Now they slowly understand the vision. But that's why I was really shocked when the podcast, he was not happy at all, you know. And
He also mentioned, I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on the first podcast. I don't want to create
Sure.
tension, and I'm
No,
not that
no.
type that's going to try to make a, war. Actually, I would love if you guys can come together and maybe two minds can start working together.
Definitely.
I hope so. But he also mentioned that a lot of people said that Desert Force was the only company that made any profit. But then I see that you mentioned back in the day, the first year of operations of Brave, you mentioned that we were already profitable. So, I mean, what do you have? I mean, how did it become so profitable so fast when you're paying? I mean, that's what he said. You're paying the fighters more than he ever did, or they ever did. You know?
I think maybe more than he'll ever do. But but
But do you think he said, he actually, another thing is he said that fighters, and he's sorry to say that, do not deserve that much money that they're getting, fighters in the Middle East. And that rubbed a lot of fighters the wrong way. A lot of fighters contacted me privately, which I don't understand. Why would you contact me privately and not do it publicly? You know what I mean? How can I help you? I felt that there was a fear of something. I don't know, fear of Brave, fear of maybe Desert Force coming back and they're losing opportunities. But that boggled me.
I would speak on behalf of them. I don't know what they spoke to you, but I would speak on behalf of them that I think they deserve every single penny that they get. I think we are not doing enough, and I don't think they are working for us, and that's the mentality. I was really disgusted with the MMA community. Hey, you are a jiu-jitsu player. I was an MMA fighter. That guy was a fitness trainer. Somebody else was a... We are all MMA fans, lovers who became CEOs or presidents, whatever we call in our designation ourselves, right? We did that. Don't misunderstand that with who you really are. Let's not look at ourselves as a boss and the fighters are employees. No, I always tell fighters, I work for you. They don't work for me. You are the product. You are the one that's going to go there and compete. You're the one that's going to go and showcase everything. What you need to do that, I will provide you. So that means I'm working for you. So if you are going to get paid, you're going to get paid. If I can pay you, why not? You think a guy who's going to go there and throw punches on the face, have you ever gone there and thrown punches on the face instead of doing just jiu-jitsu?
I mean, it's a tough sport. You have to accept everything. I mean, getting punched in the face
Getting punched in the face, clinched on a Muay Thai clinch.
It's not a long-term career. That's what I can say.
Yeah, but it is dangerous. It is scary when you know that 3 months one guy has trained and prepared to make sure that you don't wake up, you don't stand up, and that's his goal. I mean, it's scary, man. It's scary. I don't have to tap. You get me into a guillotine, I tap. Don't break my neck. But here, no. There's no tapping. I should not wake up. You know? It's a different story. So I think they deserve every penny, and I think the fighters, they don't have to speak up if they don't want to.
Even when it comes at the expense of your profitability?
100%. I mean, see, if you can't do see, what's your goal? You want to do business? You can't do a business? Don't do it. You can't pay the fighter? Don't pay the fighter. I mean, everybody has their choice, you know. I'm not saying he's wrong. He couldn't pay the fighters that amount because he was always about money. The guy wanted, as far as, and I've spoken to a lot of people, but when I listen to your podcast, the only way I know about Desert Force, and please, my information is zero. I know about Desert Force and him from your podcast. That's the maximum I know. And Hamza competing, which I don't know A to Z about any operations. So what I know is from the podcast. So that's only my information, just to clear off what I know. So not to judge of my information. As far as I've heard in the podcast, he didn't he it's all about money. The guy wanted to make money out of the fighters because the fighters had to be marketable. He didn't want fighters whose family are the only ones that's coming to watch the fight. So he wanted to make sure that fighters start promoting themselves and sell tickets, and that's the fighters that will be fighting in his promotion. And then I don't know, somehow later on when he spoke about Brave, he said that Brave is not promoting fighters, they're taking Desert Force fighters. So I don't know, it's a small conflict of he's confused himself. But in short, I think fighters have to be promoted themselves, have to be promoted by themselves is not something that I'm a big believer of. I am also not a believer of relying on promotion to promote the fighter. Should they? Yes, they should. But don't make that the life, and that's where MMA has reached today. That focusing on that have taken us to the wrong direction where we are today looking at marketable fighters. So if I cannot market you, why would I promote you? So I will not take a lost cause, like what Mirza mentioned in that I will never sign a fighter who cannot market himself or who's not marketable. And rightfully so, because that's what his business model is. He's not a fighter or
That's
athlete.
also the UFC model. I mean, if you look at someone like Demetrius Johnson, who is arguably the best flyweight in the history of MMA.
But if he was in the system that we were talking about, there's no way he would not be a star, because each step winning is what matters. But everybody follows the UFC model, right? Who doesn't? Like if you look at in the podcast you mentioned also, he said, oh, UFC, you cannot compare anybody with UFC. UFC is different level. And so you look at the mindset and you look at where they are, the level is so small, the bar they've set for themselves is so low. But what got me a little bit upset was that he mentioned that the level of Arab fighters, and I don't know if he mentioned at that time, and I'd like to believe that he mentioned at that time, but today I think the Arab fighters have trained as hard as they should be, as any other fighters that's out there, and they have competed and they have proven. And thanks to His Highness Sheikh Khalid that Brave had put that platform to showcase how good these guys are, whether it's at a grappling level, wrestling level, or stand-up level. They've showcased that they can compete with anybody out there. They can compete with anybody out there. I'm not saying they're the greatest, but I'm saying they have something. And if you see Brave fights time and time again, you will see that special thing about Arab fighters is the heart that they have, that we always knew Arab fighters have a heart that's different from the rest of the world. But they showcase that. They showcase that heart and soul when they go and compete against international fighters. And most of the times I see the international fighters losing simply because of the heart that this guy has. They're technically more smarter, maybe they have more technical aspects that can overcome the fight, but in the end of the day, they lose the fight because somehow the Arab guy has a heart from nowhere, and he uses it. And I was really upset. I didn't know what he mentioned. Maybe I didn't understand better, but it spoke about Arab fighters not having talent. I think they're one of the best in the world. So is so many other fighters. I think Brazilian fighters, Colombian fighters, African fighters. There's so much talent out there that is not found, and we don't have a scouting program. And if you look at scouting program, like looking for a fight and something, that's looking in one region or one country, and then we say you are the best fighter in the world. So I will ask you a question. Why do you say you're the best fighter in the world? Because you're in UFC? How do you say that? And it always annoys me, because I was a part of that world where I wanted to be the best fighter in the world. And I looked at GSP and I said, he's going to be fighting with me. He's 5'10", he's 7'4" inches is his reach. I learned him A to Z because that's the guy I was going to fight to be a world champion. I know everything about him. I know how he eats, how he sleeps, what's his mindset. I learned him because I thought that was the guy I was going to fight. That's the ambition I have, to be a world champion. And you're going to take that away from me? You're going to take that away from me by saying that you're not the best fighter simply because you're training hard and you have the skills? As long as you're not in the UFC, you can't be the best fighter. Then take me to the UFC. No, you can't. You have to be marketable. And that's when the words that are not pretty comes out of my mouth, because it frustrates a guy who lives and dies for that. And I think don't take that away from the rest of the world just because you're not American or just because you're not English-speaking country. Don't take that away from the rest of the world. There's so much talent out there. Heavy talent that could destroy so many people out there, whether it's natural, whether it's from hard work. And I think that statement, what he said, took that away from the Arab fighters a lot by saying that, and I don't think that's right. A person who's developed mixed martial Middle East, you shouldn't have been the one saying that. So that's sad to hear from him, and I wish that he's a pioneer of developing MMA in the Middle East. Be proudful of that. You are the Dana White of Middle East. You did this for the Arab fighters. These guys wouldn't be in Brave or any other international platform without you, without your promotion. You did it, and you are right. We took the fighters that shined in your promotion. I took the fighters in India that shined in SFL. I took the fighters that shined in Jungle Fight in Brave. I took the fighters that shined in Bama in Brave. This is what we do. We are an international promotion that does by the support of the local federation. This is the collaboration we do. I don't know how is that making somebody sadder, or more offended, but you are the person who did that. I don't know you personally, but that's the person who did that. So let's be proud of the athletes that showcased great talent in the past 2 years with Brave against international top talents, whether it's ex-UFC fighters, whether it's jiu-jitsu, 10th planet guys. They showcased talent. All came from your promotion. Be proud of that. If your promotion wasn't there, they wouldn't have had the will or courage or hope, the biggest word, that they could be that. And today they're showcasing that. Credit goes to you. But don't go out there and say that they don't have a chance.
Speaking of Arab fighters, you just mentioned you weren't happy with how he perceived Arab fighters to be. He actually talked down on a lot of fighters, except a couple, 3 guys, Haidar Rashid maybe, as a guy that made him money, and as fighters, Hashim Al who fought in Brave already, and Munir Lazaz. Now, first of all, I'm honored that you're going to speak about this issue for the first time. I'm assuming you're going to speak about it. I'm not sure yet. But this whole issue with the anti-doping and the Lazaz Eldarov, the aftermath, everything so far has been shared on social media, but there was radio silence from Brave. I don't know, they could have been waiting for something official to come out, or there is talk between the 2 Olympic committees. I don't know, but a lot of people criticized Brave's silence during that time. Maybe it's almost 2 months or more now. What do you have to say about those? I mean, are you ready to respond to these accusations?
So I'll put it in a very simple way that everybody can understand. Even the fans who are listening to this podcast, they can also understand very simply. Everything what we've said in the past 2.5 hours or 2 hours, we've been talking to each other. The idea is we're trying to change the system. We're trying to bring something better. I don't want to follow the norm where we say, okay, I have to go to a country and we need to have their best talent fight in that country. That's the only way I'll go to that country. If I don't have a talent in that country, I'm not going to make ticket sales, So we've always changed the system for the better. Even with the idea of fighters, whether it's doping or any of this, has it happened before? Yes, it has happened before in Brave. Have people been found with doping? Yes, it has happened before. Have we spoken about that before? No, we haven't spoken about it legally. Unless also, if we have, then it was a position we could. Again, to make it more clear, I'll put it in a simple way, just to not to complicate things. The idea is, how do we bring in a system where I heard Mirza telling, they have to speak out. And my question is, when Dana White said that we don't have to speak about our money because it's a private company, you all agreed to it. And then we speak about private company because you're contradicting a lot. When the Mirza guy, he spoke, he contradicted a lot when he said, whether it's fighters promoting themselves and the promotion promoting the fighter itself, or if it is saying that we are a business-oriented company and so we don't care about fighters, and their promotion shut down because you didn't have business or family fight. Well, in the end of the day, but then he's like, that's because of family fight or whatever it could be. But then you said that you didn't finish your school education because you loved Desert for so much and it's your baby. Then why did you shut it down? Because of family problems. So everything is contradicting. You're saying something that's not. So when he said that they should go out and speak in the public, that's what they should do. The question is, why? Do you know what's happening? Do you know how much money we are making? To say that we are not making any money and Desert Force made money, what do you know? You don't even know which countries we went to. You told him which countries we went to at the podcast. He didn't know which countries we went. He's like, they didn't go to, they only went to Abu Dhabi, Saudi and Bahrain. You told that he went to Morocco. When he said they didn't go to Morocco, they didn't go to Egypt. We're going to Egypt. We went to Morocco. But in the end of the day, get your information right before you come and speak. So if you don't have the knowledge of how much money a company is making, don't say they're not making money or they're making money. I'm not speaking about anybody's money. I don't want to speak about your money, Desert Force as well. But I know you don't exist. Today, the biggest relevancy they're getting is our conversation, because they're the past. We're talking about the future. There's 2 different areas we're touching today, is the past and the future. And when it comes to Munir Laz and Eldar situation, it's the same idea. We're trying to bring in a system where it's not about someone comes out with a judgment or a sentence and we go out in the media and say, this is what the sentence is. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes. You don't know how many federations are involved in this conversation, if there's an investigation going on. If there's an investigation going on between you and somebody else in your or another company, and I come on the media and say, why don't you speak about Desert Force problem with MBC and you have a case or investigation going on that, what are you going to do? Can you speak on media with me? You can't, because your lawyers would not allow in the first place. Why? Because it might hamper the investigation. So if we as Brave is in the middle where two federations are having an investigation or a conversation with each other, while the contracts say, and I'm trying to put it as much information as possible to you, as to hope we can absorb it. When two federations are having conversation investigation going on, I am nobody to go on the media. I am Brave. I am a private company to go on the media and comment on that. Plus, what are the contracts that is between the athletes and the federations and the promotion? This is something that they don't know about. And that is something that they've never valued. No private promotion has valued it. Why should they value? They don't have to value. So if I am in Jordan or Egypt or USA, I don't have to value the athletes' federations where they come from. I value the federation that where our event is happening. This is common. Yeah. But with Brave combining the world together and every federation having a part to play in this and involvement with the grassroots development of their athletes from grassroots, developing them without all this language, whatever we spoke for the last 2 hours, that has a strong involvement of the federation with its athletes. Strong federation involvement of the federations with its national events, strong involvement with federations with the regulations of the gym and everything that happens in the name of mixed martial art. They're involved at a high level. Should I go out there and break it because somebody says I don't have money, or somebody says that this is what UFC or ONE FC or Bellator does? And who are you? I just got to know your name today. So I just came to know your Mohammed Mirza, so it's not a big thing for me. I mean, like,
But this wasn't only from him.
No, it's okay.
The letters that came out, I mean, they looked like official letters, to be honest. And one of your fighters leaked them. They might have been leaked before Munir leaked them, but one of your fighters leaked them.
Yeah, of course, it's Munir it's his opponent. I mean, as a fighter, I would have done that if I was a fighter, and if I got that information from whoever the information came from, which was wherever the information came from, So if I got that information from the committee that was supposed to send it only privately to a promotion as per the World Anti-Doping Agency compliances rule, and it didn't go with the compliances rule and reached to me as an athlete, I would do it. Kudos to Munir. Of course I would do it too. Everybody would do it. But the question is, if that happened, it's important to make sure that it's not his fault. Munir has to do it. Why would he not do it? On the other hand, if they question us that why aren't you replying? Yes, they can question us because that's a normal norm of doing. And this is why, thanks to the podcast, I could at least say in the most subtle way, is that we are an independent company and we respect not only the decision of the federation that the event has happened, but also the decision of the global federations worldwide, wherever the athletes come from, because they have built and is part of a global ecosystem. It doesn't happen. Again, Mohammed, just to emphasize that we are not an event business. So in an event business, I care about my licensing in that event, and that's all. We are a sports business, so everybody is a part of every event. So if I go do an event in South Africa, it does not mean Jordan is not a part of it. They're all a part of it if their athletes are competing, by the way. They're a part of it. And at a longer level, hopefully in the next 5 years, they will be a part of it consistently throughout the year, because it all reflects to each other's the bigger goal or the bigger event in the end of the year, or whatever we tend to do with it. So everybody's going to be a part of it. So for us, if tomorrow Jordan is not supporting its athletes as an MMA federation, if they have an MMA federation, if they're not working with their athletes to say that we are the only governing bodies that are having decisions on our athletes, and that should be a development of our athletes system that they're doing, that's between them and their athletes. I can advise maybe, but I will never involve in international federations. But I'm a private company. But as a private company, my athletes have different scenarios with each federation, and that's a different story. And I will not go out and speak on the media about it, regardless of 20 or 30 people talk about it. It's only because I don't want two federations in the world that are coming together and doing so many things together and developing the sport together, and the leaders of the region in mixed martial art coming together and having a discussion or investigation. We are coming here and hampering it just because for the sake of somebody else does it for the fans.
But I think you're forced to. You know why? Because it's not just the fighter talking about it. It was leaked. and the leak had to come, in my opinion, from the JOC, from the Jordanian Olympic Committee. I have to say it because those documents, I mean, who had them? They had them. So if somebody's going to leak them, it has to be from the source. Right?
And Mohammed,
then
what you said is absolutely right.
So that's why then it becomes a little bit kind of.
But it's more of a legal problem than for the BOC, Bahrain Olympic Committee, or for the Bahraini Mixed Martial Arts Federation, and for Eldar. They have a bigger problem with that action.
Let me go back. Before you organized the event in Jordan, I asked the same question to Mohammed Mirza. Did they tell you that they were going to test fighters? Did you know that there was going to be testing?
Every country we go to, we tell our athletes that as Brave, we are not going to ask them if there's going to be testing or no testing. You are supposed to be clean.
But did the Jordanian Olympic Committee or the judges, whoever the regulator was that you spoke to, because I believe you pay money to organize an event in Jordan.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Did they tell you, okay, this is what we do. We give you the judges, we give you the referees, we give you the ambulance and the healthcare operations, and we also test. Did they tell you that? Because that's what a regulatory authority...
No, if you can test, you as an organization can test if you pay for it.
No, they test for you. You don't test yourself. Like, you don't test your athletes.
No, you ask them to test it if you pay them for testing.
Okay, so when you went there, did you know that there were going to be tests after the event?
No, because we don't pay them. We didn't pay them for it.
Okay, so Eldar not being there for the test means he didn't know that he should be tested. Is that what you're saying?
Mishandling, 100%. I mean, Mohammed, I'm the president of Brave Combat Federation. If I am going to my car after the event, I'm walking, and then somebody comes to me and says, "Can you help me find Eldar?" I'm like, who are you again? He's like, I'm from the JADO, I think, Jordan Anti-Doping Agency, JADA. Or maybe he is from there, or GOC, I don't know. Oh, can you help me find? I said, I would love to. I'm not a guy who would say, oh, I'm a president, I cannot help. But I would love to, but really that is your job, and I'm exhausted, and I have to go back. I'm sorry about it. But if I see him, because I'm living in a different hotel, so if I know anything, what do you want me to tell him? Come back here? He's like, yeah, come back here. I said, how long are you going to be staying here? You know? And I said, I will tell the guys who are with me. I won't be personally doing it because the event is over. There's going to be a lot of things I'm going to be doing after the event. I'll let the guys to work on it. But in the first place, to lose a fighter, let's say the fighter, as per they said, he's running away. You know, to run away and lose a fighter, what did the statement come out? I mean, there's a lot of things I could go on speaking about it.
There were two statements. There was a statement that said one guy was MIA and the other guy had adverse findings. And apparently that's what I've heard, they contacted somebody in Brave or in the Bahraini Olympic Committee, or I don't know what happened, but there were email exchanges telling you that, by the way, there are two adverse findings and we need to work it out. Can you come for a hearing, right? Did you guys go to a hearing? Did they warn you that there is something going on? Like, what was the process?
No, so basically it's a very simple process. So when you go there in an event in Jordan, so the idea is, this is very clear, straightforward. There's nothing wrong with them or us. It's perfect. We go there. If you want to get tested, your athletes, you got to pay for it. We always leave it to the anti-doping agency. So even if they came without informing or not letting, it's up to them. I mean, you are the Olympic Committee and you are the anti-doping agency. Do what you want to do, and rightfully so. You know, so that is nobody's fault. If they didn't let me know that they're coming, it's up to them. We go in there, they come whenever they want. But if you come whenever you want and do whatever you want, do it, because you are the regulatory body of the country. Go do it. But don't come and tell me it's my fault that you couldn't find him.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I am letting you do whatever you want. You want the athletes' emails, you want the athletes' contacts, do it. You want me to pass on the athletes your emails and your communication, I will do it. I do my part very clearly. Second subject is, what is pending? What is the relation between the athletes and the federations? What is the federation starting an investigation with your federation or your anti-doping agency? That is a different story, which is why we don't come out and speak about anything. Tomorrow, like I told you before we spoke about this, we don't do that for anybody else as well. Because even if you are not recognized by your federation as an athlete, if I do it publicly, Tomorrow I have to come back to your federation, and your federation will be like, why did you disregard our athletes? I said, they were not your athletes in any format, any regulatory way or legal way. They were not athletes that you govern. It was not mentioned to us. But still, where's the respect? You want to work with us? Show that respect to all countries equally, whether you have a paper or not. That's the vision all about. I said, yeah, we do. We have to do that. And that's what we want to go forward with, the idea of collaborating everybody together. But, most important, like you said, we have to, in a way as well, because of the leak, which is very important. Again, leak, where it came from, it is not, I think, from the last podcast, it was very clear how it happened, because he mentioned many times that he mentioned about that issue. He said he was an advisor for the Olympic Committee. He said that his matchmaker was Tahar Hamdan, who is now the head of Jiu-Jitsu or JADA, and who was talking about working with an athlete who already was in Desert Force. And we saw how much anger he was in Brave.
So you think there's an agenda going on between some of the old guard, let's say, and maybe Brave? Because I've also heard, I like to be fair, I've heard some people have come forward and told me that they didn't test any fighters for the first event you did in Jordan, but all of a sudden on this one, they're all about testing. That's number one. Number two, they tested KHK fighters and maybe only one non-KHK fighter. So, and now you speak about having some people working with the committee and with...
It's the truth. I mean, Tahar Hamdan is working for the Jiu-Jitsu committee.
So is there, do you feel there is a target? Was there a target on
It's Muhammad, like, it's everywhere. Every country we go, they always target you to show that, because it's lack of knowledge. They don't understand what you're trying to do. We are going to Jordan not because we're getting money in Jordan. We're not going to Jordan because we get sponsors in Jordan. You and I know it. They know it. Everybody else know it. They talk about coming to Bahrain and making an event. I don't know why he was so angry, because, and I will not speak a word that is not what he spoke about. Other than that, I will only speak about what he spoke, because we are not from the place where we have to speak about somebody in a bad way. I'm only clarifying what he spoke when he says that we made an event in Bahrain and we had more fans than Bahrain. They made their own promotion in the country. I think he mentioned that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
First of all, you didn't make the event. Let's make sure of that. You didn't make the event. You had 2 weeks where we made the event for you in 2 weeks. Second of all, we filled up the athletes there, or public there for you. So let's make it very clear, because it's so stupid to go and tell us that you made an event in my country. Of course, I worked for you. This country filled up our fans to fill up the stadium in 2 weeks. You think everybody was going to come for 2 weeks? We filled it up. We know it. So don't put your hand inside the crocodile's mouth. I don't know if that's a saying, but something like that, like, don't do that. Why would you say something that we helped you in 2 weeks' time? Anyways, we go to Jordan because we know Jordanian fans are there. Every interview you listen to mine, I never said we go to Jordan because, wow, we have great sponsors there. We go to Jordan only for one reason, and that's because we have the best athletes out of Middle East coming out of Jordan. Salwadi, Jarrah Selawi, these guys, Jalal Daja, Nawraz Abzag, all those guys, Hashim Arghaga, I can go on forever. Like, these are guys that I, not as a president of Brave Combat Federation, me as a fanboy, is sitting and enjoying, when they come with Abdul Qadir a song, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, okay, calm down.
But would now, after what happened, would you go back to Jordan?
Of course not, right? I mean, we would never go there. I mean, if somebody is trying to attack you, or you feel like we have enemies in a place where it's not our home, we considered it as our home, and we went there every year we went there, regardless, for the love and respect of the MMA and sports and jiu-jitsu and everything that they've done. And then we see the pioneers of, not Jordan, pioneers of MMA in the Middle East, from they're disrespecting their country. If not, I don't mind if they disrespect Brave or not their country. It's okay. That's normal, I mean, everybody might do that. But the way he disrespected Jordan, the way he was being an ambassador for Jordan in a bad way, like he was talking about the athletes, the best athletes are Jordanian athletes, And then you put your Jordan's commission into doubt. You ask me a question. Do you think they fixed it? I don't think they fixed it, or I don't know if they fixed it. Made this happen. But did it sound like it? Yes, because of who? The representative. He was being the ambassador. Today, everybody else thinks that the Jordan Olympic Committee and the Jordan Anti-Doping Agency planned this on Bahrain because he's the advisor. His matchmaker who worked for him is the head of jiu-jitsu, and he mentioned very clearly how much he hates Brave and how Brave tried to bring 80 video recorders to come and take. I understood what he was talking about, and come there, which is why Hamza was in the top of the fight cards all the time, because you said that you wanted people who would market. You got your 80 cameras. What are you crying about? Why are you contradicting yourself every now and then on the same podcast? 2.5 years, you forget what you said? Anyways, you represented your country in a wrong way. Today, the whole Gulf thinks, whoever watches this podcast, watched your podcast, thinks that Jordan Olympic Committee, Jordan Anti-Doping Agency planned this. I don't think so. But he was the representative. I think he was a bad representative for Jordan.
So you're saying not the entity itself, some people within the entity didn't give the entity a good name, let's say.
Yeah, he didn't. I would never disrespect anything we experienced in Jordan. Jordan was amazing. We had a ball there. I mean, the fight and the chair that was thrown in the last fight on Jarrah, and I was like, whoop! I slipped, and I was like, this is awesome. I have adrenaline, and I'm fat now, but when I used to, I had these feelings that I used to get when I used to fight, that adrenaline rush where I feel like I'm doing a skydiving or something. I felt that because of the passion. I've never seen more passionate fans than Jordanian fans, and I think we love to go there regardless of whatever happens. We'll always want to go there. That is the best place to watch fights with Jordanian fighters. You will never enjoy that kind of enjoyment.
So
it's different.
How can this be fixed? Do you think simply by organizing a rematch between Eldar and Munir is enough for Munir to quiet down, or do you think this needs to be solved? First of all, are you guys willing to strip Eldar if both Olympic committees come to a agreement?
100%. It's an investigation that they have to deal with. It's an investigation, and it didn't help. Like the Mirza guy coming out on media and starting to talk whatever he feels like.
It didn't help the investigation.
It didn't help the investigation. It just made it worse.
From the Jordanian side, are you?
It made it bad for the Jordanian side. Because now I didn't think of this at all. When he said this, that he was my matchmaker and all this, I'm an advisor. I put that law. I was like, why are you doing this? Like if I was a lawyer, I would tell you to calm down. You haven't watched a lot of Law and Order on TV, I guess. But in the end of the day, I think he was a bad representative for Jordan, and he shouldn't be a representative for Jordan that way. I think it was bad, but he's a pioneer still, and I think he has the right to be angry and to feel upset in his way as a corporate and businessman who thinks about money all the time. So he was thinking about the corporate and money-wise, and he must have lost a lot. I don't know. Again, I'm not very sure if he lost a lot of money from this shutting down of Brave, for Desert Force, or I don't know if they shut down, but 4 years, 3 years, they're not there. I don't know how much it cost him. I know how much it mattered to him. He said about not finishing his school and wanting that much. He loved Desert Force. That was all over his room. So I know how much it affected him, and I think, I'm always open to conversation, and I want to tell him that Middle East is his baby. I'm a Middle East MMA will always be his baby. Like the father of a nation, we say at some countries, will always be the father of the nation, regardless of whatever happens to the nation. So MMA's pioneers will always be UFC and Dana White and Fertitas, always. And whatever Samsung comes, Apple comes, it'll always be the same. In the same way, in India, there's a pioneer. In Brazil, there's a pioneer. We are only Apple. We're just a new system that's coming in. And tomorrow, something new might come in. But we want to be a part of the growth, the evolution.
Do you believe that some of the criticism that you get from people like Mohammed Mirza is due to people believing that KHK presents a conflict of interest because it is the team that is owned by, the owner of Brave? Yet, do you feel, maybe I'm not saying that the team gets, favorable matchups with the matchmakers because Brave and KHK is almost the same entity, but does it give the fighters self-entitlement? Like, maybe you guys are straight, right? But the fighters are like, hey, I'm KHK, I can get whatever I want. And maybe that's why people are like, okay, we don't like that. Because one incident that I didn't like, and I think I exposed myself on commentary even during the event, Gamzat, I believe, in Brave Pakistan, you need some fighter disqualified or something. The guy couldn't continue, so the fight he ended losing the fight by disqualification, or maybe it was a no contest, and he flipped out. He threw the middle finger and started, doing stuff, and there was a fight, and I heard the fight extended backstage and into the hotel, and nothing happened, disciplinary-wise, to anyone involved in that incident, which people used as a self-entitlement thing with people.
See, these are all dear athletes to us, and we really look after each and every one of them, and they know it themselves. And a lot of people on the outside doesn't really understand these small areas of parts where how much we are personally related to these athletes. At the event itself, when Gamzat was walking towards JP Buys and talking to him and abusing him with his frustration, you saw Chad Hanekom coming in. The frustration for the guys in Gamzat's corner was a 100 kg guy jumping on a 61 kg guy from behind, and he pushed him over, which caused the stir. But after, when I came in and I stopped them and pushed everybody out, Chad was really telling me, I'm really in the cage itself. He was telling me, I really apologize that I thought he was going to hit him. And I said, of course, I understand you. And not because I understand him because he was walking towards him. That is not justifiable. But I understood that few weeks before the UFC Khabib Conor incident happened. So people are having that still in their mind, and they must have thought it's going to be something similar. And I understood Chad at that point. So I made sure that they went back and I cleared it out. They had a conversation at the venue, not with each other, but they were talking to the referees and judges, and they were really pissed off at the way they jumped on Gamzat. They found it unnecessary. And for us, we understood the situation. We spoke to both parties. We told them to go back to the hotel. They went back to the hotel, and they had their alterations there. And they were speaking to each other. There was big loud noises going on. Of course, two fighters they were almost going to punch each other's face. But luckily, I was called by the hotel and said that somebody might die here, like because of the guys there. But when I went there, I'm seeing them standing and talking normally. And I looked, who the hell called me, They're like, no. They started screaming at each other. I thought something's going to happen. And later on, they made up with each other. And as fighters, everything was good. Chad is still with us. And we don't have to... And I don't think everything has to be in a position where you have to warn them. These guys are able to sort it out between themselves. And if they're okay with it, they're okay with it. You're going to fight for the title, you're going to fight for the contendership, whatever is going to happen in the future, go ahead, good for you guys. I don't have to act as a general all the time to go out there and say, I'm going to take a decision on this or I'm going to take a decision on that. If they sort it out, let them sort it out. It's everybody's a part of this vision and bigger picture, so let's go ahead with that. If you talk about giving easy fights, there would be the biggest mismatch would have been to put Hamza against Khalid Taha one of the times. So we do give everybody the toughest fights that is possible and go out there regardless of whatever is said, and it is what it is. But you have to understand that people don't understand the difference between a team and what is happening in the MMA industry today. When they say a team, they're again picturing the bubble which we are all in, where they see that, okay, he's being trained there, he's managed there, and they're getting 5% out of it. And if they don't think about the money as well, if they feel like, okay, they're not going to get money from the athletes, but they're going to be the guys who are going to be training within the gym, that's what it's a team, and they're going to set up a good fight for them to get them to where? To UFC, or I don't know what their mentality is, but for us, team is always about development of MMA in that region. And I think team is one of the most valuable asset that needs to be promoted in MMA that is not promoted the right way. And I'll put it this way. Let's give an idea forward. Why not we make, like His Highness always tells me, it's one of the best ideas I've heard from it. I've never implemented that, but I think I should start working on it, is to make a world championship at an amateur level world championship, like we have the MMA world championship, with under the guidance of IMMAF, to make a world championship amateur of only teams, not countries. If you do that, you will really know that we talk about each country, Bahrain, so on, so on, so on, so you will know the involvement of, like you said, the private entities, the private schools instead of the public schools, how much impact they have. You can really see that for a sport like MMA, like how much impact do the teams have. And today we forgot that credit, because before at least we used to know exactly they're from AKA, ATT, Black Zillions. It was somehow more competitive at the previous years before. Now it's less. But it became more, again, we lost way. It became about the team and how much money they're going to get. Guys started leaving the teams. But it was always about the benefit of how it is going to develop the fighters. That's what team is all about. It is not a club. It's not a revenue generating place. It's a team where it was family and people start developing, and that's what the old ATT was, or some of the clubs we know from the olden times at the pride level.
So basically, what you're saying is, as an example, it's not ATT. Like, let's say, it's not an American top team running an organization and putting their guys on there. It's more like the UFC having the UFC Performance Institute and having fighters train there, and they're fighting in the UFC. Is that the comparison? Fair comparison?
Yeah, let's say 30% of it, but I don't think most of the UFC facilities are really taking serious.
They're not a team.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I'm.
Yeah, and why is that? Because they're not taking the serious initiative to make sure that I want to develop athletes and MMA in this region or this place by bringing them all together under one roof and giving them. So even if you have 20 gyms, they all can come under one roof called Cage, can train with each other without bias or problem with my gym will not train with your gym. In Bahrain, none of that exists. Everybody from all gyms come under train. It's a small country, so the competition of business is much more bigger. But you see all of them training with each other without any gym problems in the country in MMA. And I think that is important. And so we have KHK in Dagestan now. So we have KHK gym in Dagestan. We are starting in September. We'll open the KHK Brave in Pakistan as well, because of, like I said, they don't have the resources. Let's give them one. And all the gyms around will not feel competitive. And again, you will always find a Desert Force or so and so who's coming out and saying, you're trying to eat my gym. And I'm like, I am not. I'm just trying to make sure that your fighters can compete at the highest level and achieve their dream. And this is just a platform for that. And we are not really taking money from your athlete. You can take the money if he wins. If he wins in the competition, 5% you want to take it from him. We don't want that money. But you know what I mean? So it's the small things that people don't see, and they don't see the bigger picture of it. But it will all change gradually, and I don't think it's making a big impact. People who will want to speak about it, they will speak. And as a person who loves to hear critics, and a person who looks for it and searches for it, so that I can understand it, because I love to hear the problems. Because if it's something I cannot answer, if it is something that I think that it is a problem that I would be in a position that I'll be like, wow, what am I going to do? Then that needs to be addressed. That definitely needs to be discussed in my company. That needs to be discussed within the team. And I think it's very important that we do that. So I'm a person who looks for it, and I don't really... there are athletes who watches brave fighters, and all of them, whether it's KHK or not KHK, and all of them looks at it and says, we have one policy with our matchmaker, is that I and he will never like each other. For sure. That's for sure. And I always...
You and your matchmaker don't?
Yeah, we will never like each other.
Yusuf
Nassar. We will never like each other.
Why not?
Because I will always have the promotional heads comes out some way or the other. Yes, our vision is big and all that. But at the end of the day, I'll always want to see a good fight, or I want to build one athlete. I have this feeling as well as a promoter to build a superstar and so on. So although the vision is bigger, at some points you want to promote some fights. You want to do this and take your breath and relax a little bit and enjoy the show, But that's where Yusuf Nassar, we've given him 100% rights. And it's not from myself, from His Highness Sheikh Khalid, has given him full rights. If Shahid says anything, don't listen. He's not your boss. Don't worry. Make the best fight the best. And I'm so proud of that, of our promotion, because of how he makes the best fight against the best. You just saw a guy who can be the best potential guy in the future. You'll see him fighting against a monster in the next fight. You're like, what about the building the fighter? It doesn't happen in Brave. I think the biggest and the toughest fights happen against each other in Brave.
When I realized that, Brave London, two guys you built up.
Yep.
Two guys, British guys, one from Wales,
yes.
And the other guy...
Ireland, Cian Cowley.
Okay, maybe not UK, but Ireland. But you built them up, and they lost.
Yeah.
So... That's what you're saying. That's the game.
There's no choice. Right? Like Hamza Kohiji, you put him against Khalid Taha. You have Aiden James. They put him against this monster from Parachute Regiment, and you have this guy Ikram, a KHK guy, Ikram Aliskarov, the future. And I was like, Yusuf, but it is the best has to fight against the best. You put him against Kamzat, it is going to be a fight. So one of them, they both are futures. Somebody has to lose. Today they have to lose. Let it be after 10 more fights. No, the best fights against the best. In Brave, the best fight against the best. They have to train the hardest. And now you're going to come and tell me they don't deserve the money they get? How dare you? Go tell that to Ikram, who developed all his life being the champion in Sambo twice, come into MMA, train day and night to fight.
He actually said he didn't like promoting fighters from Russia because they don't sell fights.
Magic.
They don't market themselves. They don't like to market their fights. They just get there and fight, and that's it. Take their money and leave. I mean, he isn't a fan of fighters from that region, to be honest. And it's kind of weird because he might be right, marketability-wise, but
Sure.
right now, today, there are no tougher fighters than these guys, I think, from Dagestan and from Chechnya and from...
Right on point, Mohammed. You just put the nail on the spot, and I'll try to expand a little more without taking a lot of time. Is in the end of the day, today they are in their bubble, so they're like, oh, Russians are not marketable. But one day, when the Russians dominate their field, they're all marketable eventually, And then tomorrow the Spanish takes over, they're all marketable eventually. So who is the most marketable football player once upon a time, And then tomorrow you see a Spain team. In 2010 there was an unbelievable Spain team, then Spain became the biggest one. And if England tomorrow becomes the toughest team, that becomes the place to watch. It just keeps moving, and that's sport. You are still stuck in your world where you think you know the sport. From where? After all we've seen from the continuous failures, you should be thinking twice if you know anything about the sport at all, because I think you can't disregard anybody. The Russian fighters today are in this position. Who was not marketable when a person had a talent? Again, it depends on what the promotion does. When Fedor was there, he was marketable. Was he a person individually not marketable? No, his talent was marketable.
But he didn't talk English. He didn't...
And he was always bored,
Yeah.
And that was Fedor. And then you have Khabib, who's the same way. But everybody, it's the same in the whole world. The problem is, who marketed him? He himself or somebody else, or is it his fights? So, in the end of the day, those are the questions I ask. Is the system supporting this? Is the fighter have to fight 29 fights, or I don't know, from 9 years of being in the UFC is when Khabib got his, the big click, or Fedor has to be 33-0 or 30-0 or something like that to get where he has to get. I don't think that is right. I think that is where we have to say, are they marketable? Yes, they always are. Everybody is, as long as you have talent. That's it. But who markets them is a question that I have a problem with. Is the promotion or is the fighter? I think it's a system that should be doing that based on talent. If you leave it to me, I'm a human being. I have my own opinions. I want you to be having a hairstyle like mine. I want you to have something else. I don't know what it is. Maybe I want you to be wearing a guy who's wearing suit. I don't want to wear suit. Why would you force me to wear what I want to wear? And then you have the other side of the world, which is trying to compete with them by saying, no, we don't like trash talking and everything. We're going to teach you cultural things. We're going to show the culture of Asia. I'm like, now you're bringing a sport that's going to separate East versus West. While we are trying to bring the world together through sports, you're trying to separate world from sport. What the hell is going on? Guys, calm down. All right? You're all excited because MMA has grown so fast in 25 years. Calm down. Do what you all have to do. Let's take it step by step. The people who are working from the grassroots level and building the globalization and giving opportunities, that's happening. I'm not going to be worried about taking care of the culture of the people and spreading the Asian culture to the public, or I'm not going to be worried about how big people say that you're the best fighter in the world because you're in the UFC. Or I'm not going to be worried about the regional promotion that's all crying in their own places. And only the ones that are in the past, by the way, are the ones that are crying for different reasons, by the way. Let it all happen. That is what the MMA family is all about, right? When we like we have a saying, when there's pans and cans in the kitchen, they will always make sound hitting each other. And sometimes the empty vessel makes more noises than anything else, So it's always good to let that happen. And we always learn from it. And if the Fighters Union didn't speak about the fighters' problem, against UFC, if I didn't understand the media problems because the media didn't speak about some things that I found not very journalist mentality, I wouldn't know all this. So all these problems are good to build a global ecosystem, and you will find 3-4 entities finally joining hands together, big entities, powerful entities that has been working for the past 3-4 years that nobody has been seeing happening. But if you look deeply, you will see come together to create mixed martial art as a sports that we all been looking for, and that is what it is all about in the end of the day. Nothing else that we talk today in the MMA world really matters. Other than some fights we love to watch as fanboys, but other than that, in the business wise, none of it matters. You say you're 1 billion, you say you're 2 billion, you say you're 4 billion. and we are going to sit, and you and me, we are MMA lovers. So let's say our first love of the sport is MMA, or second love is MMA, or even third, top three is MMA. Then we want to see not a $4 billion company, and we all celebrate. Whoa, we have a $4 billion company. You're celebrating that you have a $4 billion company. Do you have a system that can create 15 $4 billion companies under that system for the sport? No, you don't. If you look at football, you have one league that has at least 3 to 4 $4 billion companies, or $3.4 billion companies. And then you look at other leagues, and then you eventually look at the money the World Cup makes in revenue. Oh, you're comparing FIFA to MMA? Thank you. That's what I'm exactly doing. That's a benchmark we kept from MMA. Prove me otherwise why it cannot be. Globalization factor? It has. Adaptation factor? It has. Acceptation factor? It has. Marketability? It has. It has everything. Only football and MMA has become as global as they both are. We know because we're from Middle East. We know because we're from South Asia. We know because we're from Africa. We know because we're from USA. Football doesn't have that, what MMA has in North America, or let's say USA, which MMA has.
True.
The competition between football and MMA is Europe and USA. As much as MMA is big in USA, they're smaller in Europe, while football is the opposite. Is the opposite. But I think they both have the equal potential, their own bar. And then we are looking at putting the bar down because we don't have faith. So it's going to happen.
Okay, before I move on to the next segment, just to be fair again, I have to say this. Maybe Mohammed Mirza is not going to be happy with what I'm going to say right now, but I'm kind of disappointed he didn't mention it in the first podcast. Maybe he forgot. I'm not going to say he deliberately did not mention it, but it came to my attention. And for some reason, I remember that, but I forgot to mention it during the podcast, so it's kind of my fault too. There was an incident that needs to be mentioned in order to make everything sound fair. Back in the day, a fighter by the name of Mohammed Al tested positive for steroids. And he was demoted. That was after his fight with Ibrahim Al-Sawi, where he knocked him out. The famous tooth flying up the air. Nasty KO. He tested positive, and then he was demoted to L'Academia, which is like the reality show for Desert Force. Somebody told me this, and I trust that person. So he continued to fight, and he reached the final of the reality show, and he ended up winning the reality show, and he fought for Desert Force after that. Now, the thing I don't understand is it Brave that tried to get Mohammed Ghurabi later on to fight in Jordan, and the Jordanian Olympic Committee did not allow it to happen because he was serving a sentence for that steroid issue. But he fought 2-3 times after for Desert Force after that incident. So there is something that I'm not getting. I'm not trying to blame the Jordanian Olympic Committee. I have a good relationship with everyone.
Sure.
I don't have enemies. I have a good relationship with Mohammed Mirza. He's a good friend. Zaid Mirza, all of them. Maybe they're not involved, but what happened then doesn't give someone like me, looking from the outside, a lot of trust towards some of their entities. I mean, is it true that you tried to have him fight? Or was it another organization that tried to have him fight, but then they were like, no, he's suspended, he can't fight?
I know, Ghurabi, we've tried to have him fight a couple of times. I'm not very sure exactly where, but always comply to it. The problem is he's from Lebanon, I guess, yeah?
Yeah.
And Lebanon is the same issue like France, where the National MMA Federation is not recognized it's illegal. By the way, like not I don't know if that's the right word, illegal or banned.
In
MMA?
France, you mean?
No,
until
Lebanon,
recently.
Lebanon.
It's still?
Yeah.
I thought they were in the IMMAF. They were one of the first.
Exactly, but in the country it's banned.
Okay,
So like France is competing in the IMMAF, but in the country of France, MMA is.
Didn't they have trials in Lebanon as well? They had trials to compete, but it's not sanctioned.
It's not. But they're working out in a different area, I guess. I'm not very sure, but I think they're with France very close to doing it. I think Wissam is doing an amazing job there. I've seen him from the beginning working hard on Lebanon, and that's why I'm waiting to talk to him to make sure that we need to get it in Lebanon somehow, Brave as well, so I know how hard he works, and I know they have this issue with the same like the France issue where it's not legal at this point, but So we don't have any support for Gharabi anyways. So wherever he goes, as Lebanese fighters, few Lebanese fighters and French fighters, we have the same issue that we can't work with the National Olympic Committee. We can work with the federation, but it is still not official. You know, in the sense like for example, now if we had issues of people having tested positive for anti-doping agency by the federations that do the testing in the countries that we hold the event. As usual, we don't put that out in the public because we let the federations deal with it, as every federation is collaborating with each other.
Desert Force at the time just mentioned that they had 3 people pop.
Okay.
They never mentioned the names. I'm mentioning the name because I feel it's not fair. If a guy popped, just say the name, you know, even if it's culturally insensitive. Why not? If the guy, I mean, if Eldar Eldarov, without due process, had paperwork get leaked, and him and Ahmad, was it Ahmad, the other guy?
Ahmad Magamadov.
Yeah, were like, you know, smeared like that. I don't know if they, again, if they took it, they deserve to be smeared. But right now, there's nothing. It's an ongoing investigation. So what I'm saying is, if an Arab fighter pops, then I'm going to mention his name.
Of course.
I mean, if he's going to get mad at me, then get mad at me.
And also this one, when Mirza in the interview, he said on the podcast, he said that he was taking steroids. And I was like, either you were lying or you know what I don't. Because we still haven't got what was, you know, in his. So you know it because you're working Jordan. Back to the old topic of it might be planned. So I don't know if he's lying and putting his own organizations in his country into trouble, or showing the bad reputation from that side, or is it because he's just angry that he's lying? So I would like to take, because I'm sure that he might watch it, or somebody he knows might watch it. I don't know what is causing him to be so angry about Brave, or what we are doing, or what MMA is, or with the fighters and all these things that he's angry about. If there is an issue that is angry about, that is from my side or Brave has done to him, as a person, as a respect to a person who's done MMA, I would apologize from my side if there was something. But I don't think that it is good to take that out on the athletes or the community or the development of MMA in the country. Take it out on us. And I would even give an apology out there if there was something that I didn't know that hurted him, or even in this podcast. Again, I mentioned only things that he mentioned, so we're only talking about what he mentioned, nothing more than that. Because I don't know the person, I just came to know, like I said, about him, or what his real name was after the podcast. So it's simple for us. I think there is an opportunity for developing, and anyways, I always like to look at the future. I always say that what's past is past. Desert Force doesn't exist anymore. There is none of what he does exist anymore. So if tomorrow he wants to build Desert Force back or do something in the region, we're always here to collaborate with each other. His experience will be priceless as long as he understands the vision that we're looking at, and it's not commercial, it's not bringing revenue today, it's not treating the fighters like advertisement tool. It's different. The cash flow in the company, in the industry increases. That's how we made profit. When you asked how did we make profit in such a short time, when you go to each country and give them the value of what globalization factor is, they would all want to be a part of it. I would put my $1 million on a Brave event today, because I know that million will turn into 10 million. Because if I have become $1 billion company or a unicorn in my country, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to make that unicorn 1 billion into 20 billion if I get the global opportunity to do business. The only transportation to build global relationship today, one of the strongest one that builds global relationship, global media exposure, is Brave Combat Federation. And that's not competition with MMA, that's competition with sports industry. Not because we have more media strength, it's only because we have stronger media activation globally. For example, our relationships are always given back and forth and we take that very seriously. Every country we go to, you might have WrestleMania in a country, but then when it comes out in the public, and you look at Brave event and WrestleMania in the same month, and you see WrestleMania having more media exposure internationally than Brave. True. But the question is, how much of that, you have 1,000 media platforms mentioning that event. Brave was only in 50. Out of that 1,050, how much of them mentioned the country's name in a way that why you took that event there for? The real agenda, and you will find 50, and you will find this to be 20, and then you question, okay, out of the 20 and 50, how much of them were positive and negative? This is where we have the control, because we go for the right agenda and we spread the right agenda and we make sure that it is bringing the world together. It is not about our brand. If it is about our brand, we will support anybody who speaks. If it was about our brand, we would go out and trash talk the guys who was tested positive and the public wanted, and we go out there. But let's build a sport together. I mean, what you're doing today is more bigger than anything many people in the community has done. Is it easy? No. Is it going to be, you're going to make money tomorrow or after this podcast? No. But you know that this is going to change MMA in the region. This is going to make sure that today's podcast, what we have, Chad, I could never do it in 1 year's time to tell all what we did in 2 hours' time. I would never be able to tell people this.
More than 2 hours, probably.
More than 2 hours, probably.
But, yeah, so I mentioned that statement because I needed to be fair, and I needed to put that out there for people to analyze. I'm not going to pass any judgment on it. I'm just we gave, between the first podcast and this podcast, I believe all the information that can be legally discussed is out there. Okay, let's move on to the next segment, the last segment. Man, even off air, we had a lot to talk about that. I think we could have like 4 or 5 hours, 5-hour podcast together. But now I'm going to give you some names and some questions, some terms, whatever they are, and as briefly as you can, just tell me yes or no, or depending on the question, you'll know how to answer. So let's start with Brave London. Well, I'm going to ask you this because what you did was very unique. Invitation only, a lot of criticism. People didn't understand you told them a lot of things before the event, but after the event, they were lost. They were like, okay, so what did it achieve? The fighting, the event, quality-wise, in terms of technically, wasn't that great. So, there was good and bad, but Brave London, how would you analyze, or, what did you think of that event? Did it succeed, in your opinion?
Empowering MMA in the world through Europe. Europe is a big market, and you need Europe. And to enter Europe, you need to empower MMA more than making the fans happy there. You need to bring MMA to the right people with the right in a right way, and that's what we did there. We got the right people on board to make an MMA event, and I told before our podcast as well, there is invisible check boxes you need to tick in to make some things happen, and that's the invisible check boxes we ticked in. No media or no public or nowhere you will see those, but those are important check boxes, and what the check boxes mean is just presenting MMA the right way.
Would you do it again?
100% every time in London.
In London only?
The invite only?
Yeah.
In London, invite only, because it could be in other European countries as well, I think. But the criticism was only from one media, and the media who was there presenting, and it was not a criticism. I think I thought 50% of that was a positive saying, but he didn't feel that it was an MMA event because that's what he's used to.
I think it's mostly because of the crowd reaction.
Yes.
People just didn't.
But it was the right people you want to see. You don't want to.
So, okay.
You want to bring the right people there.
Okay, so I just asked that to see whether you were happy with it. So
you
were happy with it. You think it?
Many of our other countries are now opting us to do the invite-only event because that's more beneficial than a public event, because that's going to bring in so much more value to the country and MMA in the country than a public event. So we might have a few more this year, maybe, because they've all changed their mind after the London event. Okay. Most of our partners, they're like, we want to do an invite-only event. I said,
okay, next, new weight divisions.
Perfect for the athletes to get the best out of them.
You already did a super lightweight.
Super lightweight.
Introduced other.
And a lot of guys are going to be changing up and down in these weight classes. I think there should be more, not just super lightweight. We should have more. Do it the right way. I don't want to make a chaos there, but do it the
boxing chaos, confusion.
Exactly, but in
lots of champions as well. Yeah. But are you canceling weight divisions? But when you add.
No, we're just moving them. So we have this, when you have the super lightweight, the welterweight gets slightly higher. Welterweight is no more 77 kg, it's 79 kg. Okay. So a small differentiation, but I think it's to find we are looking for the best fighter in the world. That's what we discussed. We forgot about that. So now we're going to bring that back to find who's the best in the world. So if I'm going to find the best fighter in the world, let them fight at the weight class they can be the best fighter or perform the best. Simple as that.
Okay. Will Brave do a reality show? Yes or no?
Yes.
When?
soon.
Is it the usual format, or is there a new idea?
I think every country has a different idea, but one of the things I like about the reality show is that's why I said I understand the culture is important. But one of the reality show I want to do is again I'm gonna give up my business plan already. But I think is I'm gonna make a reality show that is not a TV based reality show, but that's gonna be a reality show where I want to really do the reality. Meaning, if I'm coming from a background that is a dark background or a sad background or from a favelas of whichever country I am living in or where I'm from, I go to a house and do a reality show, and it doesn't work out because they don't really see my reality. You're going to see my drama or my behavior. But what about my every day that I walk from the dark alley all the way to the gym where I could be murdered or kidnapped or something happens to me, and every day I walk the 25 kilometers? Nobody knows about that. So let's give everybody a mobile phone in their hands. And one of my business development heads told me this idea, and I was like, this is perfect. In some countries, not in a country where everything is good and nice,
Yeah.
but countries where you need to tell this story about the guys who came from the favelas or these hard places, let them take it and show them their everyday life. That's reality. That might not have the drama that you see putting everybody in one house and gossips and all that stuff. Who wants that? I don't want to see that. I want to see the reality of each athlete for a week.
And it might not work, as you said, culturally here, right?
Yes.
We'll see. One more thing. Stephen Lohman. What do you think of this man?
The future of mixed martial art, and this guy is unbelievable, and so much about him. He's like Brave Combat Federation. He's something that people will hardly understand, but is something very special. He's competed outside every other country, beat the best in Brave in all the countries that he's gone to, come back to his hometown, took the pressure well, and competed there and won. I think sky's the limit for him. I think he has a great future in Brave, and he's going to be. I honestly, it's not me talking the 1 billion conversation. I'm just saying he's going to be the next Manny Pacquiao of Philippines because he represents a lot, and he proves it.
Uthman Zaitar. I know he left Brave. He's going to fight in the UFC soon. What are your
I
thoughts?
didn't know that.
Yeah, the Abu Dhabi event.
Okay, that's been a long time since he's not fought.
Since the Moroccan event.
Since the Moroccan event,
Brave.
yeah. And I say that all the time. The reason why we had to part ways with him is because we are willing to make the best fight against the best. And when we don't have that best fighting against the best scenario affected by somebody, forget about some promotion who's past coming and telling me that we should promote fighters, so we should make entertainment and make money. Imagine I have fighters coming to me in the future and telling me that I won't fight this because I think this is best for my promotion or my future, and I can't do that. I need the best fighting against the best, regardless of the KHK fighters, and you can watch every Brave event. You will see one thing, which is why me and my matchmaker don't work together, is because he has the rights to make the best fight against the best, regardless of whatever the agenda of Brave is, whatever our business agenda is. And if that's not there, we have to part ways.
Baba Jenkins.
Baba Jenkins, unbelievable person. Heart, mind, soul. He is all there to fight. I think I would love him to be more than a fighter. I think he could be a representative of mixed martial art better than most of the guys I know of in mixed martial art. I think he is a GSP comparison when it comes to representing mixed martial art. I think these two guys, GSP and Baba, if they were in the system that I'm talking about, which will be in the future in 5 years' time, they would be the Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo of mixed martial art because they are the right role models.
UAE Warriors.
No, I'm really I know UAE Warriors and Abu Dhabi Warriors from a very long time. I haven't watched any fight. I don't know what happens in the event, nothing, but I know there's a promotion that happens in UAE, and I am looking forward to hopefully partnering with them because we do a lot of events every year we have an event in UAE, so we would love to do a co-promotion. I think that's going to be fantastic, and the whole Middle East people would love to watch it, the fans of UAE Warriors and the fans of Brave.
The UFC's Abu Dhabi return. What do you think of that?
UFC's return to any country or planning to go to any country is not going to do great if they don't understand that I have to value the country before my brand. And inshallah, I hope that they value the country before the brand. They've come there before twice. They've gone to India saying that they will go to India. They've gone to China saying that they will do so many things in China. They've gone to Brazil for so much time, but everywhere they forgot the country, they forgot the people, and they thought that brand was bigger. And I think an advice for them would be to turn that around. You are a great brand, a big brand, pioneer of mixed martial art. Give your value to the country. You give. Don't think of taking because you're a big brand. Give to the country. because the country is bigger than you and they love you. That's why they're calling you back. You will see people from all of GC coming to watch UFC because we love you. They're fans for you. So when they come there, show respect to them for the love they show you. So give back to the country. And that's what Brave does. We go every country and we don't take. We want to give back. And what Brave deserves to get is only helping us to develop the sport. That's what we want.
Okay, Artem Lobov versus Amir Khan. Does it happen in Brave or not?
A possibility for sure. The conversation is happening.
Boxing? Bare knuckle? What is it?
I think it can't be an MMA fight for sure, and I don't think it can be a bare knuckle fight for sure. I think it should be a boxing fight. But let's see, it's not in my hands. I would love to make that fight happen, but it's in Artem and Amar's hands. They have to make the decision. And again, it's the first time I'm bringing in two fighters to make an event more than my event running a vision. So it goes back to the old school way of what if the numbers are right, the checks are right. They all have their demands. So we have to make it all right. It's not as easy as running an MMA event. So, but I think it's gonna happen. It can happen if everything is right. But let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. It's my first experience.
Okay, and will we see the Hawk fight again?
I wish I want to do that, but I will definitely get back soon. Try to fight. But the problem is I want to, but I've been saying.
By the way, I never asked you this. How did the Hawk name come? Like, who gave you that nickname?
When we were young, we are an expat family that came to Bahrain. So the expat and middle class were the challenges we faced. But in Bahrain, the good thing is, even if you are traveling from another country, coming here for work, you end up making this your home, and you'll be feeling more homely in Bahrain than in the other country. So if you're born here, khalas, this is your country, and you will be homesick if you leave Bahrain. So I grew up here with the culture of Bahrain, and my father was here for like over 45 years, and so we grew up, and we got to the habit of loving to deal with falcons. So we started training falcons, we started keeping falcons. We might be the weirdest kids in the area to have falcons in our hand. We were obsessed about it. So in our family, of course, it was not falcon. We put up this name together as Hawks, because Hawks is somehow cooler than. So all my brothers, we made a family pact, brothers with cousins, that we'll have all of them as Hawk 1, Hawk 2, Hawk 3 as a nickname. I'm Hawk 8. I'm not the only Hawk. So I was Hawk 8, but as I grew older, everybody got mature. And they forgot about this whole thing. But I kept the name, and I felt like it's something that represents my relationship with my brothers and my family. And I tried to use that relationship and that understanding that got me to have faith in myself, because I always believe my brothers took care of me more than my parents, So I use that same example in my gym, in my company today, and wherever we go, I follow that example to the employees and to the people. So as a family, so I always remember that Hawk's name, and I would always love to promote it. But that's it.
You have any last words? This is the end. Any?
Oh, we're ending.
Finally.
I was just getting started. But no, really, thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing the podcast every time it comes out. I can't wait for another one. Don't wait for every month to make one. Hopefully you'll make it more often. And we'll see the knowledge of MMA spread to the region. But let's, one last thing before we close this podcast, I would like to say is that we grew in Middle East. We are from Middle East. We're from GCC, and our promotion is GCC. It started from GCC. You are here, where the public that's going to be viewing you is mostly from GCC, or Gulf or Middle East. And what I want to really say is that don't think small about yourself. Don't think small about yourself. You are able to compete at the highest level like any other continent that's out there. I think one of the best fights in the world are in Middle East, and the Arab fighters. Remember that regardless of your gym doesn't look as fancy as the other, or your communication of how the techniques work is not as cool as what you see in the YouTube guys speaking and talking about techniques, or explain it as, but you are as tough as them, and you have the star power as much as anybody in the international world can be a star. So you have the platform today. You have the exposure platform, you have the performance platform, and you have leaders that are trying to make the sport better for you. So it's all there. Have faith, train hard, work hard to be the champion. This is very important for them to know. And don't let anybody else put you down and make you think otherwise. And that is the most important thing for you to realize. And let's make sure that MMA grows in the country, and we have to unite together. As a second most important thing is we have to unite together, every country. But since we are talking to the GCC fans, I think we all have to, Middle Eastern fans, we have to unite together to help each other build the sport in the region. This is going to be the hub of mixed martial art. The world is going to look in the next 3-4 years into Middle East and say, wow. Well, Saudi is bringing in boxing events and big boxing events, and UAE and Abu Dhabi is bringing in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and all that, and Bahrain is bringing in MMA. Khalas, we did it. The combat sports, Mecca for the combat sport is going to be GCC and Middle East, So it's all there. Let's all unite together and make it bigger. Make it, look into your own media first before you look at MMA fighting and MMA junkie and make decisions. When you look at two media platforms, you look at the Middle Eastern media platform, what they say about the incident, and the international one, and you believe that because somehow that is international, So trust in your media, trust in your people. You have a community. Let's build a community through mixed martial art and build it and compete against with the world. We are the number one. Bahrain is the number one in Middle East. I think it's time for us to build every part of the Middle Eastern countries to come out there and compete at that level and build the sport. We have the caliber for it.
I would like to thank you because, for giving or choosing my platform to respond to a lot of questions the MMA community have been asking for the past few months. It's a brave decision, and you're the brave president. So I appreciate it that you gave my podcast even into its early tenure. I mean, this is only the second episode. And again, I hope we meet again, whether it's a brave event next, or maybe we do this again sometime. There's a lot of stuff we could have talked about that we don't have time to talk about. Off the air, we talked a lot of stuff. But I thank you again, and I wish you guys good luck for this year and the coming years and the next 5 years, which is the plan. And inshallah, we meet soon.
Inshallah, we meet soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Guys, this is it. See you soon.